Hello, everyone. Hello. It is I, Trooper SJP, adjusting my mic. And this is the Academic Foxhole. Woo! Also, I feel like that's better. Hi, everyone. Hello. It is I, Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole, and it is Saturday, PS4 Saturday, and we're gonna play a game. And it's been so long, and I've missed you. What are you all doing? What is happening? I have so much to tell you. I have a lot to tell you before we start, or as we play the game. You know how it is. How is it? How are you doing? Also, I don't know how I feel about this. You're like, what is this? Look, there's been, oh, Maggie says good morning. Yay. There's a lot going. I just want this. Here we go. So I'm gonna just pop out chat over here so I can see it. Dutch Teddy, how are you? Hey everybody. I'm just moving our chat because I like this better. I have ways I like to do things. Okay, what do we have? Let me see what chat has to say. Stuck at work. No, stuck at work. That's fine, though. I see you, Valtiel. Hey, hi, everybody. Also, Big Stretch. Curlin's like, oh my god. No, you haven't seen me. You haven't seen me in decades, Curlin. You haven't. It is true. So, Rissa says, okay, chat, I have to leave at 1:50 p.m. Trooper time today, so I'll be up to you to keep from chatting till midnight. Oh, I do have lots to tell you, and I've got a lot to do. So, I am live. So this is what's up, y'all. As some of you know, as most of you know, right? As you should know, my computer died. It had some kind of catastrophic software situation, and I had to wipe the entire hard drive. And then because I didn't want to port over everything. So let's back up. Wait, I can tell this story while I'm playing. So let me tell you the parts of the story that I can tell you, that I can't tell you while I'm playing. I've got to show you something. I have to show you something. Okay, so first off, I've missed you all. You know, I've missed you all because I haven't been able to stream because my computer was down, and before that I had Gen Con. So that's like 2 whole weeks. It's as a matter of fact, I can tell you. I mean, the last time I streamed was last night because we had that RPG Rune, which, by the way, I had a really fun time playing that game. I am really excited to see other realms and what they're like. I kickstarted it, but I'm really excited to see how people build other realms and like what kind of cool exploration stuff they can do. I feel like that will be really interesting. And yeah, I've got a lot of sort of thoughts about that I'm very excited about. Yeah, I just want you to know it. Hey, Heskate. No, Ice Bunny, no banjo music because I have not been able to do anything for the last 2 weeks besides just fix my computer. But once I get that free time back, I get to practice my banjo, then we can have banjo again. Let's see. I did unpack 1 box of books. You can see some right there. Right there. Right here are more books. But these I'm not quite certain what to do with yet, because these are all manga and comic books and graphic novels, those right there. And the thing is, this is not like you care about this, but in case you want to know, this shelf here, this one here, that shelf, that is currently all music and art. These are all music and art books. And then this is RPGs, this is RPGs. I suspect that when I unpack all of my RPG books, it will take up more than these 2 shelves. And I'll need a 3rd shelf, which I have planned for being this one up here. But I don't know if that one will take up how much of that shelf the RPG books will take up. So the big question in my mind right now is, do I unpack these graphic novels onto that shelf where I plan on putting my overflow of RPGs, or do I put it on the shelf above it? Because I know they will not fit on this shelf here, because I've got way too many graphic novels to fit on that bottom shelf. So it's a little bit of a, but I feel like I don't have so many RPGs that they will take up a huge amount of this shelf up here. So it is a bit of a conundrum, and the only real way I can know is if I can get all of my RPG boxes and then just unpack them. The only problem is I have a lot of boxes in that other room which are mostly just books. Let's just be fair that those boxes are basically books, CDs, and DVDs, and VHSs. That's what those boxes are. And so I have to find which of those boxes has my RPG books and then just pull them out. And anyway, the point is, I've got some, I've done a little bit, but I still have more to do. That's what I'm going to say. Yes. Time zones. I started one different RPG library that formidable. You know, a friend of mine is excitingly DMing me about the email exchange he just had with a physicist after pointing out a slight question. Ooh. Oh, that's so fun. Look, I will tell you what. I love it when people give me cool stuff, which was one of the other things I wanted to share with you before we started the game. I did. So, yes. There's that. And I've been sadly too far away. But I got a new computer, but I didn't get it. I got a laptop. I got a new laptop. Because as my computer was melting down, I thought, what if after I do the reinstall, it still does not work and problems are still happening? Then I'll be screwed. And it was tax-free weekend. So I went and I got a laptop, which I can use in my office at work. So it's practical. I have not been able to set it up yet because I've been working on this one, and I still have a lot to go through with this. There's a lot to do to get this in shape. As you can tell, it's at least functioning this way, but like I haven't finished. So I had like bed rollers are the way to go. You put bed rollers under the bed so you're safe in case your bed decides to crash. Oh, I don't have a tall bed though. I think I'm fine. Oh, for the mangas? Oh, yeah. I feel like I've got space up there. I mean, you may not realize this because you cannot see it, but this is a very tall room. It's got like what 10-foot ceilings. This particular place, and these shelves go all the way up to the ceiling. I cannot reach that high. So those upper shelves are pretty much unpractical. But I do have I have a step stool, so I can get stuff that I would not reach as regularly up on the higher shelves. But that's for a little bit later. Is it a Mac top? It is. It is. He was super nervous because he's a first-year physics degree student pointing out a math error to a PhD with multiple published papers, and apparently it was such a positive reaction. See, you know, some people are very nice and very happy. Like, I like good things. I actually was pointed out this weird error in an article that I wrote, but the weird error was not actually pointed out to me. It was a mystery. Somebody it was very tricky. Somebody emailed me. The article still works. The article still works. But I think there's an error in this one article that I wrote, but the error is weird. Like books for teaching go into my office at work. So I want to tell you this story. I will tell you the story about the error in my article, but that's the thing for when the game starts. I want to show you the thing that I can't show you until before the game starts, right? Okay, so there's so many experienced people get so defensive. Like, oh yeah, no, look, if there's a error, I want to see it. Also, although I would say it does depend on how you do it. If you're like, well, actually, and you're being a jerk about it, then that's less cool. But as long as you're not a jerk about it, I'm happy. I mean, because in the end, you want to do good work, right? So I'm going to tell you this cool thing once I start the article. Let's see. Okay. I said hello, right? I told you about my computer being miserable. We'll talk more about that later. I feel like that's all I have to do before we start the game. But, so, here's the thing I wanted to tell you. I wrote an article I read a chapter for a book. And I wrote the chapter for this book 18,000 years ago. And I'm not actually exaggerating. I am exaggerating, but I probably wrote it in like 8 years ago. Something like that. Really, really a long time ago. I wrote it, and I was invited to participate in this book. There was a book. I was invited to participate. And when I was invited, I was like, yeah, I don't have the time to do this right now. So I didn't. And then a year later, after the deadline would have to submit things was passed, they emailed me again. They said, hey, we still have some spots for contributors. Would you do it? And I was like, sure. So I worked really hard to get my thing in. Because I knew I was invited like a year late, so I wanted to get it in as quickly as possible. So I worked really hard to get it in, figuring I'd be the last person to get my chapter in. And I was not the last person to get my chapter in. Anyway, long story short, academic publishing takes a really long time. And the book finally is out. Finally. And this is the book that I have a book chapter in. This is the Oxford Handbook of Music and Queerness. And I have a chapter in it, and I just finally got my hard copy yesterday. I picked it up, and I have been waiting for this to come out for 1,000 million years, and I am in here, like, I'm in here, like, my thing is all in there. Transgender cat passing guides and the vocal performance of gender and sexuality by me. And I am like pretty excited that I finally have this thing in print after 8 million years. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm less stoked that I made a table for them. I sort of created a table for them, and they formatted it in a way that I didn't like. But you know what? That's fine. My book is out. Ta-da. Okay. Let's see. If I'm understanding this impenetrable physics jargon correctly, it basically boils down to, oh, bloody hell, I was just about to present that to a conference, and that would have been embarrassing, so thanks for checking my math on that. Nice. 18,000 years ago, when Taliesin Jaffe was but a minor ascending deity in the pantheon of the Eldritch Courts. Yes. No, nobody found an error in that chapter. People might... we can talk about that later. Sounds like a really cool book. Is it specifically an education textbook or something more publicly available? So Oxford Press started coming out with this handbook series of a lot of different topics. So this is the Oxford Handbook of Music and Queerness. They've got like the Oxford Handbook of Music and the Voice, or the Oxford Handbook of Voice Studies, the Oxford Handbook of Philosophy, the Oxford Handbook of blah, 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 blah. And these are not... intro books. What they are edited collections where you have so this has got like 32 chapters of original work by scholars who are considered sort of important in the field. So if you pick up this book, now I will tell you these are really pricey because they are hardcover. If they come out in softcover, that'd be cheaper, but these are not cheap. So I would say ask your library to get a copy, and then you can check it out. But so this has got like 32 chapters, came out this year, hard copy, and it's got a bunch of different, basically a wide range of different scholarly chapters on the topic by people who are considered important in the field. So if you read it, you'll get like a really interesting overview of different ways in which people are thinking about any particular given topic. So it's not like a, this is what the topic is sort of book, of which there are those as well, but it's more of a, hey, if you're interested in this topic, here's some of the biggest scholars in the field writing in a wide range of topics, so you can kind of get a sense of all the different things that people talk about under this topic. And, you know, so there is that. Oh, it's not self-promotion if someone else links to it. I suppose that's true. That's true. 1,000 million years. So a Terion. Oh, I think that's nice. You're supposed to... You know what you're supposed to do after being free for 2,000 years? I think I'm supposed to go and... well, that's Crom. So, okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to just read you a couple of chapter titles so you can get a sense of what's in here, which I think is pretty interesting. So, Whose Refuge? This House? The Estrangement of Queers of Color in Electronic Dance Music. The Queer Pleasure of Musicals, Gospel According to the Gays, Queering the Roots of Gospel Music. That's by somebody who's actually really quite important. Queer as Trad, LGBTQ plus performers and Irish traditional music in the United States. Gay Country, Trans-Americana and Queer Sincerity. Queer Hip Hop, a brief historiography. That is by Shantae Smalls, who's really, really important. She's like a really important queer hip hop performer in like the 90s in what was called homo hop, but people don't really talk about, like there was a whole queer hip hop scene in the 90s that people don't talk about anymore. But then you've got things like Endangered Tenderness, Schubert, Chopin, and Schumann. You've got operatic adaptations and representations of non-normative sexualities. Queer audiovisual creativity, fan-created music videos, from Star Trek to Bad Girls by Nina Treadwell, who's amazing. Love her. Karaoke, Queer Theory, Queer Performance, dedicated to Jose Esteban Munoz, who died. It was very, very good. Let's see. Free as a Bird, Thinking with the Grain of Michelle Indigo-Cell's Butch Voice. What else? What else is really exciting here? That one, Towards the... I don't know if that one's good or not. I read a rough draft of that, and it wasn't very good, but I hope I gave feedback, and let's hope it's good. Queer Times, An Introduction to Queer Perspective on Afrofuturism, and a reading of Sun Ra's Space of the Place. I have to read that because that sounds amazing. Music and the Margins, Queerness and the Clerical Imagination, 1200 to 1500. That's the years. The Queer History of the Castrato. That's by somebody who's very, very good. Queering Middle Class Gender in 19th Century U.S. Theater by Gillian Rogers. She's very, very good. She's very good. Anglophone Songs About HIV and AIDS. Queer Patriotism in the Eurovision Song Contest. That's a good one. Interdisciplinary Queerness. Interdisciplinary Inquiries from India, moving toward a queer ethnomusicology. Non-ordinary Gender and Sexuality in Indonesian Performance. Out in the Undercurrents, Queer Politics in Hong Kong Popular Music. How to Do Things with Theory, Cultural Transcription, Queerness, and Ukrainian Pop. Oh, we have a Ukrainian one. So like, there's just a lot of really cool things in here that spans genre and century and approach and country. So it's like, if you were interested in the topic, generally speaking, about what people are doing in terms of like queerness and music, that's a good one. Now, the one I was also invited to do the handbook on The Voice, but I had that chapter going, so I didn't have time to do both. But that also is a pretty cool one. Has a lot of really neat ways in which people are thinking about voice studies. So the Oxford handbooks are pretty good. They also have... Hold on. I'll show you something else. Hold on. I have something else to show you, because I'm a professor, and that's my life. Iceman says, it's not pricey, considering how many people worked on it for an East Market. That's actually true. We want to know your... Oh, I said mine was on the transgender passing guides and the gendering of the voice. So, hello, Blue Pointer, how are you? So, Vio says, that sounds like a great cross-section of how queerness and music intersect from academic perspective. Right, yes. So, if you want something that is a little bit less... Now, I will note, because this is an edited collection, there's a wide range of writing styles in there, so some things are more accessible, some things are less accessible, but it's pretty decent. That said, I have two other book series to recommend if you're interested in sort of academic stuff in a slightly more accessible way. One is Oxford has these big massive tomes here, which by the way are super cool, and I'm so excited to read this. I'm really excited. But they also have Good Morning, Blue Pointer. They also have an entire series which is Oxford's Something, a Very Short Introduction. And this one is Country Music, a Very Short Introduction. And it's this really teeny little book. I've got a bunch of them where you can just read this and get, what is this? It's like 100 little pages, like super tiny, right? Make the World Go Away, Countrypolitan Sounds, 1957 to 1964. And it's just this very brief introduction to some topic. And it's by one person that give you a really nice brief overview of the topic. So like the table of contents for this one, which is country music, has Behind the Big Bang, the roots of country music, Wildwood Flowers, country music goes mainstream, 1923 to 1930, Back in the Saddle Again, the birth of the singing cowboy from 1930 to 1944, Honky Tonkin, post-war country music, 1945 to 1959, and then Countrypolitan, Mama Tried Country Alternatives, 65 to 80, Friends in Low Places, Retro Country, and Country Pop since 1980. And then there's a little coda on the new millennium. And this one, and even if you're not a music person, there are a lot of really cool books in this series. So they have, for example, a very short introduction to Adam Smith, a very short introduction to the American presidency, a very short introduction to Aristotle, art history, Australia, the Aztecs, chemistry, child psychology, climate, the Cold War, a very short, this is interesting, a very short introduction to dictionaries. Interesting. I bet they talk about historical dictionaries. I bet that would be really interesting. I should find that one. Genomics, geography, fashion, feminism, Habermas, the Habsburg Empire, fractals, free speech, Jesus, Jewish history, medieval literature, medieval thought, memory, mountains, North American Indians, the Norman Conquest, theology, thinking and reasoning, secularism, social and cultural anthropology, relativity, physics, Voltaire, war and technology, water. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Witchcraft, world music, right? So this is like a really neat little series, and I don't think these are super pricey. Oh yeah, no, this is like 12. These are like $12 or like £9. So they've got a whole huge series of these really short little introductions by. These are stimulating ways into new subjects. So it's a short, concise, gives you a really good overview of the topic by a scholar in the field, but very approachable and accessible. And it's not just music, we've got a huge, wide range of stuff. So that's a good one. And I was just realizing right now as we were talking that I want to teach a class on country music. I have not taught a class on country music yet because I don't really know what I want to name it, because I think I don't want to do just country music. I want to do country music, the blues, bluegrass, folk. I want to do that whole kind of range of things. So I don't yet know what I want to call it, but I bet I could use this in there. Oh, the queer hip hop chapter is free online. Nice. Actually, a number of those chapters are online, which is really, really good. I'm used to the Danish book prices. Yes, they did. They also made handbooks for art history. Absolutely, that was funny. But the question with expensive books is, do you dare to mark the text and write in them? I don't tend to write in my books or mark them, because what I tend to do is, you can't see it because they're in the other room. I get little Post-it notes. Like the little flags, and I'll just flag them with Post-it notes and then write in the Post-it note, because sometimes I change my mind about what I want to say, and so I have more flexibility that way. Yes. I'm surprised. No, I haven't done a class. I mean, I've talked about country music in other classes. I just haven't yet done a class that is specifically on country music, and I really need to. So, the other book series, if you're interested, that I would recommend. Now, this is often, sometimes it's academic, sometimes it's not academic, sometimes it's journalists. It kind of just depends. There are different folks who write these, but this is definitely made for a non-academic public. But the books are very, very good, very smart, very well researched. The people who do these do their stuff. I should probably write one at one of these times. I just haven't done yet. So it's called because my life, right? So it's called 33 1/3. I don't know if they're still current. I hope they are, because it's a very cool book series. So this book series, 33 1/3, is each book is about an album. But usually they use the album to say something bigger. And this one here is on the Shangri-Las, the album, The Golden Hits of the Shangri-Las. right? So this is a book about that particular album. And what's really cool, what's very cool about these is that they really do exactly the kind of thing that I love in music scholarship. What I think is like really quality and choice is that they take an album and then they actually talk about how that album is important in society, and they use it to talk about larger issues. And so this one's on the Shangri-Las, and this one's about girl groups. The back says, of the many girl groups that came out of the 1960s, none is more idiosyncratic and influential than the Shangri-Las. They were together only 5 years, but within that time they subverted pop standards and foreshadowed a generation of tough women in music. Critically, they are not lauded in any way. Critically, they are not lauded in the way of the Ronettes, and they are certainly not household names like the Supremes. They were a little too lowbrow, with an uncouth flair for theatrics that has placed them just left of the girl group canon. So this is going to be talking about canonization and why they were not in and out. But what I would say is, if one of the coolest books in this series is the one on Celine Dion, the one on Celine Dion is one I really, really recommend. It is called, I think it's called What About Love? I think it is. And it's basically, it had the opportunity to go really badly, right? It could have gone really, really badly, because it was written by a guy who's like a rock dude, right? And of course, like any good, legit rock dude, he hates Celine Dion because he hates women. He would never say that, but he hates pop music, right? Because pop music is fake, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, he decided to go and look into this, and he realized how biased he was, and how biased like the rock's perspective is. And so the book itself is thinking about taste and how we judge things. So it's well done. So that's a good one. That said, you know what we should do? We should play this game, and then we can talk about all the things. But I wanted to show you those before, you know, we did it, and before we got into the game. But now we're going to get into the game. Let's see. Here we go. Ice Bunny asked me if my syllabi are done, and the answer is yes. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so overworked and stressed, right? Because they have this new policy where they want all media that are uploaded to websites at our university to have closed captions. Oh, hey. Do you know what? Hold on. Guess what? I realized I can... Oop, sorry about that. Hold on. Give me a second. This showed up where I don't want it to. Give me a moment. I realized that I can turn on my closed captions, and I want to do that. Give me a second. Oop. There we go. Let's do this. Let me caption source. I don't think this is exactly how I want to do it, but because I think I had another way I was doing it. I think I did. I think I had another way of doing it, but save and let's enable and save. And am I going? I am. Sweet. Okay, my captions are on. I have to, because I'm rebuilding everything from start and the captions are new, I have to do it for each scene, for every single different scene. So I have a different scene per, like I have a scene for Colos, I have a scene for going solo, I have a scene for video games. All these are different scenes, and I have to have the closed captioning go for each one. But speaking of closed captioning, I just remembered. And now this note needs to go here. I didn't realize people were allowed to realize bias and change their minds. I know, right? So yeah, so I'm ahead of the game. So they basically wanted us to have every single piece of audio that we publish online, not online, on our university web pages. Where are we? To be closed captioned. By the way, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this because I have to tell you the story so I don't forget. And if you want, you can turn them off for yourself. And once they're on, you can click to turn them off, right? Hey, Schmelzer. So they wanted everybody to caption all video and all audio, and forever now. And they're like, don't worry, it won't be a big deal because, I mean, you're just using Zoom, right? And that just has auto captioning. I mean, you have to go hand correct it and all that, but it should be fine. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. We're not all just doing video lectures that are pre-written that we can just auto capture. Some of us have 200 pieces of music per class. And you know what auto capture does not do well? Music. And so basically, we're looking at having to, like, for me, I'm looking at about 200 hours of work in addition to my regular workload per class to caption everything. About 200 hours. And that's if I get really swift and fast at doing it. And luckily, I'm teaching one class but twice, so that would only be 200 hours of extra work in the summer when I've got a lot of other stuff going on. And I was like, what the heck? And I was like, you clearly have not thought about how this will impact music, for example. Because they just weren't thinking about music. And actually also the scientists were really upset because scientists were like, auto caption doesn't work for science stuff either. And so yeah, music with subtitles in case you cannot, yeah. So there was, however, a loophole, and that loophole was if anything published in a university website before July 1st did not have to adhere to the policy. So I had to get my entire syllabus and everything done and uploaded before July 1st, so I did not have to close caption. I did not have to spend that 200 hours in the summer, which would have been, I mean, that's 200 hours in the summer. We're not getting paid for the summer, by the way. And I mean, I get paid, but I get paid for 9 months of work spread out over 12 months. So the summer is technically a time when we're not working for the university, technically. So anyway, I did not want to spend 200 hours of work closed captioning everything. So I got my syllabus done July 1st. So both of my syllabi, all my syllabi are done. And this was basically, and they told us like a week before the policy was going to go into effect, a week or two. And then this other one, this prison class, the deadline to get all those materials in was August 1st. But then I was told, oh, no, wait, I need it next week. So basically my July and June was miserable because everybody changed deadlines on me. Surprise. And from you have 2 months or 1 month to do this to you have like a week to do this. So it's been madness for me. I've been having a bunch of people having crisis over there and then giving me their crisis to deal with, giving me lots of extra work is what it was. Yeah. Cool, I just need to get good. I know, right? Why does it not work for sciences? They do not have to write boom and then the whole library flows. Mostly because all those chemical compounds do not get captured by auto capture very well. Even the best voice recognition struggles with technical language. Yep, Carlin has it right there. And auto captions are not the best voice recognition. That is correct. And it's so funny because people said, oh, well, I mean, you can just go and hire someone to do that, right? Like you'll just go and hire someone to do the captioning for you. And I was like, do you know how expensive that is? It is so, it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It would cost more than our budget, more than the budget for the, and also, by the way, the university will not pay for any of the captioning. They said if you're going to do captioning, you'd have to, the individual departments would have to do it, but do it for the budget individually. Like the department would have to pay for it out of their budget. And to capture all of our classes for one semester would take the entire budget for the music department for the entire year. And our budget in the music department is really is we have a higher budget than a lot of other departments, not sciences, they always have higher, but for the humanities, arts and humanities, we have a slightly higher budget than a lot of the other arts and humanities departments because we're not just a department, we're also a music center. So we also have to pay for performers to come in and do concerts. So like we have some extra money, but like we don't have $300,000 to pay for captioning, which means, of course, all of us faculty would have to do it ourselves, because it's just so expensive, and we would, yeah, that's all I'm saying. PH says, "Oh, hi, Trooper. Hello. Been a while. Wanted to give condolences for Nichelle Nichols and Living John in person. Yeah, both of them. That was a real bummer. Blue Pointer notes, captioning isn't cheap. And good captioning transcription isn't fast. No. They should give the money to us in the humanities. I feel like everybody should be able to, like, everyone should share, but, not everybody believes in sharing, I suppose. Anigeek says, it was expensive just for me to get hard-coded subtitles for animes from the 70s, just be able to watch them. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you can get cheap captioning done from, like, Fiverr or whatever, but that cheap captioning is actually just them just running it through auto recognition, then just handing it to you, which you could just do that yourself. Yeah. Peach says, sharing under capitalism may as well be treason. I don't like it. So the long and short, I should eat food, by the way. The long and short of it is that I, because of all of that business, my syllabi are done. They are done ahead of time. The only thing is that a still dripping meat from a canid. Sure, let's eat that, shall we? And then also, what are we doing? We have to head to unlock the security office hall, override authorization. Okay. Oh yeah, we're in the we've got to do Kim Lab stuff. And we're gonna just shoot this mechanical, like so. And then maybe we'll shoot it again, because that's fun. Oh, I think they're gonna go get into a fight. Well, I suppose that's okay. I'll just take this stuff while we're getting ready for a fight. I hope they're gonna be okay. Hey, just go and do your stuff, y'all. Why are you getting... Don't let yourself be hit by, like... Don't let yourself be... Oh, man. I clearly have to go down here and, like... Oh, here. How are we doing? Hi. Just, Oh, you know what? This sentry seems to be doing not as well. Oh, I am hurt. You're right. I am hurt. I'm hurt. Ooh. Excuse me. I'm hurt. That's bad. Don't like it. Excuse me for a moment with that not liking being hurt. That's bad. I am hurt. Somebody use your powers. I'm dying. In a bad way that I don't like. Max Ryder, how are you? Also, why is this thing so hard to kill? Like, that's... Hi. That was a little intense. I didn't even I was not expecting any of that business. I was just like having a happy chat with you all, and then things got real bad. Real fast. I just wanted to chat about life. I didn't, want to get into a huge firefight with people who want to kill me. That wasn't on my list. Oh. Might as well search a little bit, and probably also repair all of our equipped stuff. Yeah, things got really injured. It's fine. The collegial says they value accessibility. The collegium says they value accessibility. They won't invest in making things accessible. Yes. Also have some thoughts and questions. Sure, saying you value something is free. Actually doing something costs money, so it's easy to guess what will happen. Well, the thing is, what they just mandate that we have to do it, and then we have to do it. Yeah. Some science research sounds a lot like why did they give this? But they would, you know what though? They would say the same thing about us. I mean, you can be like, that scientific research is silly, but all anybody ever says is that what we do is silly. So I feel like it's not particularly useful to devalue anybody's work as silly in that way. I mean, like, as a whole, because they're for the goose, but for the goose gander, goose, right? I mean, somebody could easily say, "Oh, you study popular music? That's silly. Why would you even why would we spend any money on that?" Right? I mean, it's easy to do that. Center of the yeah. Oh, I did not go to Gen Con. I worked as a remote producer for Gen Con, where I produced shows remotely for them on their like the live streams. But I did not go to Gen Con, and I would not go to Gen Con because there's a pandemic, and also, I, mm, we have we have a big conference coming up, academic conference. It's a big one. Every 10 years, so like there are three major music scholarship societies. Uh, which one is the, no? Uh, no? Yes. There are three, are we? We are stalking, that's cool. There are three major music scholarship societies, major ones in the US. And they are the Society for Ethnomusicology, the American Musicological Society. Hey, look, you're playing games. And the Society for Music Theory. And they all have their own conference every year. But every 10 years, all three societies meet. Hey, Lonku, how are you? So every 10 years, all of them meet up. And this year is the Everybody Meetup year. And over the last 2 years, we have not been meeting in person. We have been meeting remotely because there's been a pandemic. And this year, they're not going to be meeting remotely. They're going to be just meeting in person. That's what's happening this year. And people are asking me, hey, are you going to go to the conference? And my answer is no. Why would I go to a conference which is clearly going to be a super spreader event? Also, by the way, I don't remember. Okay, hold on. We came in from there, so that's the way we came in. I want to make sure that we don't miss anything, you know? All right, so we came in that way. So no, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to our, didn't go to Gen Con. I'm not going to go to our academic conference. Ugh. Because I just feel like, you know, I'd like to look at a map. So we came in here. I want to check out what's here. I want to be very, very methodical. So check out this whole vibe here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to be methodical because I feel like being methodical is important. Yeah, hard pass. Same here. Thank you. I feel like I'm the only person who still realizes there's a pandemic sometimes. I don't know why hybrid and high flex are such hard concepts to grasp. Yeah, so the thing is, and when I've gone out to places that, I go out to places that, excuse me, pardon me, this is what I need. I also need this, and this. I'm dying again. It's bad. Here, let's just do that. I've been like outside to like eating places with a patio, that kind of a thing, is what I've been doing. But like we're still in a pandemic. The pandemic is not over, and it's very frustrating that people seem to feel like they are when they're not over, and it's very frustrating. This seems bad, right? This seems bad. Here, let's do that. Excuse me. Hey, friends. All my friends are dying, by the way. Like, it seems not great what's going on here. I'm just gonna note that for the record. Yeah. My friends are dying. They seem to be not in the best space. It seems like we've got some really heavy-duty creatures, monsters, sentries, wrecking our lives. And it's a lot of weapon and armor parts to repair awkwardly. Yes. Yeah, I'm mocked at work. You're mocked. Yeah, you're okay. Axe, I totally feel you right now, and I'm very frustrated actually about all of this. I mean, I still wear my mask. I'm still masked. I'm still masked because we're not done with this. We haven't finished. And if we could continue keeping on, we could lick this. We could get over this. But if we just pretend like it's not happening, it's going to keep happening. And when people say things like, well, there's just nothing we can do about it. So it's like other countries have done stuff about it. New Zealand has. Other people have done things. There are things we can do. We just apparently don't want to. And I find that very frustrating. Yeah. Are your friends? Yeah. When I go out, it's always with a mask. I'm appalled how many masks people. Yeah. Uh, the number of people who caught COVID at Gen Con is scary. Yes. 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 And also those masks they keep you from catching the flu and other nasties. That's Rissa. And here's the thing about this. I was just recently asked so we have this event every year, which is like there's Parents Weekend. So, we're back in person. There's Parents Weekend, and all the parents come to visit their kids. And we have a big concert, like a big, huge sort of event for Parents Weekend where all the different ensembles play, and it's a big deal. All the arts sort of do stuff. So the parents can see their kids perform and blah, 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 blah. And I usually MC that event. And I was asked, would you like to MC that event this year? I was like, no, we're still in a pandemic. I am not going to be MCing this event, which we don't even think we should be doing. I didn't say that part, but my university has just come out with their COVID guidelines for this coming year. And these are our COVID guidelines for this coming year. A university that has a whole bunch of young people in dorms from all over at once. Coming soon. You should be vaccinated. You no longer need to social distance. You no longer have to wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, you can. It's encouraged, but you don't have to. And as a professor, I cannot mandate that students wear masks in my class. So like if I do not feel comfortable with people being unmasked in a seminar in a small room with a large number of people, I can't do anything about it. So they don't have to have any masks. No testing anymore. We used to be tested 3 times a week. Everybody was tested 3 times a week. Now, no testing. The only way that you'll be tested is they'll give you a rapid test if you have symptoms. Other than that, so no testing and no masks for a university starting in 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, that's really interesting for you. I'm not about it. I'm actually very, very, very irritated. Seminar held in quad in the snow. Yep. Absolutely. Right. And and it is about money, right? Krellin says CDC means Center for Defense of Capitalism, not disease control, because they aren't trying to control any diseases. Yeah. You're allowed, Blue Pony, you're allowed to ask the students wear masks. Yeah, I can't even. And Axe is like, if you have symptoms, it's too late. Yeah, absolutely. You've already infected everyone around you and everyone you've passed by for the last week. Yeah. No. Also, Blue Pointer asks, are we allowed to teach remotely? We are not. We aren't allowed to teach remotely. Last semester was the first semester when we were in person, and because there was a big spike in COVID right before the semester started, they said, okay, you can teach remotely for the first 2 weeks of class, but then after that, everything has to go back in person. So we can't teach remotely. They don't want us teaching remotely. And they have, when we first, if the professor catches COVID, well, then I suppose we'll have to figure out what happens then. Maybe if I catch COVID, then I can teach remotely, because I'm sure I will still have to work, even if I have COVID. So then I suppose I will teach remotely at that moment. Blue Pointer says, wow, our faculty unit just said no, they can teach remotely as long as they want to. Yeah, no, we are not allowed to, because here's the thing. This is the thing I think is really fascinating about this. Well, if I get COVID, I have to be tested. So here's the thing about teaching remotely I find really fascinating. My work took away all restrictions several months ago. Ugh. and then acted like they were confused why there was a sudden spike of people calling off or being COVID positive, spiking up to 70% of all employees. Accidentally, 70% is so much, but obviously, right? So when it comes to teaching remotely, what I think is really interesting is that before all this happened, I was used to so many of my students saying things like, I don't know why we even have classes in person or even go to college. I don't know why, because everything can be done remotely. Remotely is the future. And everyone's like, yeah, remote teaching, all that's the way to go. That's the best way. And here's the thing. Then they had to do remote classes and they realized they don't like it. Remote classes are not going to be great if you have a lab science. They're not going to be great for music classes, for dance classes, for art classes. There are a lot of things you just have to do in person. They're not great for small seminars. And there's a lot of privilege in this idea that you can just take your classes remotely. This summer, for 1 week, just like 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was volunteering to go and teach some music history for, it was like a 1 week, this like a 1 week summer intensive for marginalized and underrepresented and poor music students that comes out of Canada. And I was doing I volunteered to go and sort of teach them some music history and all that, and it was mostly teaching them about how to make arguments and all of that. And of course it was all remote. And let me tell you what it's like if you do not have a lot of privilege and you're expected to work remotely. So I am like doing this thing with these students, and many students, they did not have good internet at home. So it was always very stuttery. It wasn't always certain if they could hear what I was saying or vice versa because their internet was not great. They often are living in maybe not the most safe environments or supportive or welcoming environments. We had a student who clearly did not have the best home life, and that of course spilled over into the middle of class. We had students who have to, who've got little brothers, little sisters, chaos in their home because, that's just what it is, and that's not a great working environment for them either. So there are a lot of people for whom I can just, like, they don't have broadband at their house, you know what I mean? Like, they don't, like, the remotely is not necessarily the best environment for them or the best way. And like, I'm not saying that there should be no remote teaching. I think you can do some things quite well, but it turns out the students didn't like it after all. They didn't enjoy being remote for a year and a half, and they demanded to come back in person. And because the students are demanding to come back in person and their parents are demanding it, then the university is like, okay, we're coming back in person, even though it's still not safe to do so. So it's one of those things where just noting it, remote teaching works best when somebody's teaching me about my remote. So many buttons. I know, PH. That was PH. Rissa says, I'm grateful to work for an employer who has basically shifted to hybrid work without requiring people to come back. Stacy and I went to the office for the last week and a half because they have better AC, and there were 4 to 6 of us total on site. Plenty of room for social distancing, and everyone is vaccinated, yeah. Rissa says, I think you're a very effective remote teacher. Parents want it because they just want this in their kids' expensive daycare. So what's interesting is that I think that there are some things that you can do remotely and it will work out. I find I was able to, 2 years ago when the pandemic first hit, I was able to finish one of my classes on Twitch. And I thought that worked much, much better than teaching via Zoom. Zoom I find to be less effective. Twitch was much better, but that's only certain kinds of classes that you can do that for. There are a bunch of classes you can't do that for. And there are certain things you're going to lose when you teach remotely that that you will get in person. In person, I can read the mood of the room better. Like, I can tell if people are not getting it or what the vibe is. I can tell if I need to slow down on one topic and take more time with something, or if I can speed up. Like, being in the room with people, you can read the classroom dynamic better. When it's remote, you can't. It's much harder to tell remotely if some people are missing things, because in person I can look at everybody's faces and I can see whatever, there's like a vibe that you can pick up. So it's much easier to regulate, to slow down or speed up, to sort of move and be flexible in where you're going, to be responsive to the students in the room if you're in person. If you're not in person, if you're on Zoom, it is really hard to figure out where people are missing things unless they speak up, but some people just don't speak up because they're shy. So I find that if you're doing remote teaching, you're more likely to sort of like push through the plan. And I like to be a lot more responsive, especially for lecture classes. in a lecture class, I have a lecture, but I want that lecture to sort of be shaped by who the students are in that room and where they're at any given time. And it is just much more difficult to do that when you're remote. When you're remote, that kind of goes out the window, but I prefer a responsive lecture style that shifts and molds to where the students are at any given moment. And it's just much harder to, it's harder to personalize and customize when you're remote. And when I teach, I really like to be very custom and personal to the exact people who are there. And I think about something, there's a lot of like record your lectures, and then it's called the flipped classroom, right? Where like just record your lecture, put it online, and then the students will just watch your lecture, and then you come into class and just like do whatever. Everybody does homework or something. It's a flipped classroom. But for me personally, if my lecture was exactly the same every single time, that would be an indication that I'm not interacting with the students the way I want to be interacting with the students. I feel like even if I do, like I have taught history of African American music every year for like since 2008, with the exception of when I was on leave, right? So I've taught that, what is it? That's like, I've taught it like 12, 13, 14 times. I would say every year it's a little different. Every year when I walk in to go and do my class on the blues and the 1920s, I know all the facts and all the details, but when I come into the class, it changes. I always usually have between like 6 to 8 songs in the playlist, but you can only play about 2 to 4 songs in class, and which songs I play will depend on what the students say and what they're thinking and where this conversation goes. And this is a lecture class. It's even more personalized if we're in a seminar. But in a lecture class, I really, really want to be with the students, and I want them to be with me, and I want us to be creating something together, something that is unique to that moment, that is unique to that time and space in those students. And if I just record a lecture that they listen to every year for like 10, 15 years, that is just not my idea of teaching. That's just not my idea of teaching. I mean, people can do what they want to do, but for me, it doesn't really work out very well. Gervais says, don't forget that for many universities, colleges, not only for learning in reality, the social aspect is huge, and remote teaching makes that so much harder. Gervais, that is absolutely true, right? Especially in the United States, a lot of what you're doing in university is this larger experience that also involves student clubs and orchestras and newspapers and all sorts of other things that are part of this, and that's really hard to do that remotely. Max Ryder says, Twitch is actually a really good idea. Students can send questions in the chat. Teacher is interrupted. Yeah, I find, and what's really interesting, Max, is that I found, because I think I'm one of the only teachers that taught via Twitch when it all went down. And of course, now it'll be a real problem because when I moved over to Twitch, the RIAA hadn't yet realized that Twitch was a thing, so they weren't really doing anything. And now they've just really cracked down with all the everything. And so it's really a bit of a question whether or not I could teach on Twitch, but I have a lawyer's language, and right now I need to go and do some experimentation to see if I can actually do the things I want to do some more music lectures for you all, but I need to go and I've talked to a lawyer, now I've got to talk to Twitch about stuff. Anyway, having taught both via Zoom and via Twitch is way better. I cannot see people's faces at all via Twitch, but what I find is that in Zoom, people don't talk in Zoom. They don't chat in Zoom. They kind of just sit there and check out a little bit. There's a way in which people are way less engaged in Zoom, but Twitch, people are very engaged in. And I found when I was teaching my music history class via Twitch, people were very active. They were very present. Luckily, I have practice in reading chat and also paying it. That is a particular multitasking skill that I've developed that many of my colleagues have not. But Twitch was way better than Zoom, 100% way better. Still not the same, but I just took it as a different medium. Do you know what I mean? Like I took it as a different experience, but I still would just not record a lecture. Yeah, no, I just wouldn't do it. Rissa says, true, I've done trading via Zoom and Teams, and it's impossible to tell if anyone's paying attention, let alone understand the topic. Yeah, it's very difficult. Anageek says, I really wish I could find a remote job personally because being in restaurant work, it's just become too stressful because the area I live in is very heavy Republican. Most people refuse to wear masks. Anageek, I think, and this is a thing, Anageek, this is a thing I do want to bring up. what you just said, I think it's important. There's all this thing of like, well, everything should be remote. All of our jobs should be remote. There's no need why we need to ever be in person anymore. And anybody who wants to be in person is a terrible, evil extrovert who's an energy leech. And I was like, there are people who work in restaurants, who are dentists, who are construction workers, there are a lot of jobs that all those factory work, those warehouse workers for Amazon who don't get to take bathroom breaks, they can't do that job remotely. Like when everyone's like, oh, we'll just do everything remotely. There are a lot of jobs that those people who say that really, really want people to do for them that cannot be done remotely. And so when we start talking about remote jobs, I think we should just remember that we do still have some blue collar jobs that can't really be done remotely, that I feel like people are ignoring those workers and not taking into account their health and safety. And that makes me unhappy. I'm going to just note that. Just going to note it. Yeah. PH says, it would be nice to be able to watch back a lecture. Yes or no, PH? I have some thoughts about that. So for this last semester, I recorded my lectures on audio so that people who missed class because they had COVID could go and listen back. And it turned out it was really bad because when the lectures are recorded, what happens is students are like, oh, I don't need to go to class. I can just catch the lecture when it's recorded. And then they don't. So you have students who are enrolled in classes who then just don't actually come to class or participate at all. And then they don't do well at the end. So a lot of students struggled because they just weren't actually participating, because having the lecture there in that way made them feel like they didn't have to come to class. And it was not good for them. And they didn't feel good about it. Yeah. Rista says, that thing about putting the recording online makes me think of the montage from Real Genius. When the number of attendees dwindles, students replaced with tape recorders until the end there's just a tape recorder playing a lecture. Yes, absolutely. Also, there's a bit of a thing about recording, in that a number of people have taken to recording lectures by perceived liberal professors, taking sound bites out of context and then doing gotcha stuff. So there's a way in which it's being used kind of sketchily, which is sketchy. The RIAA, Max asked, the RIAA is the Recording Industry Association of America, and it's the organization that basically makes sure that nobody is cheating the record companies out of money. So if you play copyrighted music, they're going to come after you. They also come after people for file sharing through Napster. They're really into making sure that record companies get money for any time music is played for anything. And they're really big on shutting down everything, including fair use. And they often have a huge amount of money that people who are regular people do not have. So those regular people cannot fight back when the RIAA is going after you unfairly. Yep. Plus, in Zoom, everything you chat is a matter of college records. So yes, Blue Pointer, yeah. I become more present when I wrap myself and wear a bow on my head. Me too, actually, PH. That was PH. Max says, I'm a standing GM and sitting while running online has been confining. I'm going to try Sunday to stand and play online. Oh, that could actually be very cool. Get a standing desk and then run online while standing. That's Max. That could be very neat. I don't have, I know some people have one of those desks that can go from sitting to standing. And that's pretty cool. Javai says, by the way, I realize that we have to get back to playing, but we're catching up on chat. Javai says, another thing with remote learning is that it doesn't work the same as in person at all. Like you can't do the same as you would in person, but online. Absolutely. It just doesn't work the same. It needs to be adapted for remote learning. Yes, Javai. Absolutely. And many people haven't done that work. I've found that I can adapt to go to Twitch pretty easily, but that still now is a problem. But I would much rather go remotely on Twitch than I would on Zoom. 100%. Much, much rather. And if I were a literature teacher, I would have no problem doing that. But I do music, and the RIA wants to kill me. So that's irritating. And then there's just some things you can't really adapt very well because you have to be in person for them. Max says, when I worked at the newspaper, Max, what did you do at the newspaper? What was your job at the newspaper? I had to go to the police, the courts, and 911 to get information. I couldn't do that remotely. I could have done some of it remotely, but not all. Yeah, yeah. And I think that we sometimes underestimate. Good luck grooming a dog remotely. PH. PH. I want you to know that I just had a vision in my mind of like robot arms trying to groom a dog remotely, and the like a dog groomer using Wiimotes, right? Using the Wiimotes to try to groom a dog, and it, not working out. Rissa says a lot of those essential worker jobs that are suddenly no longer essential, but people want the job done. Yeah. And Krellin notes, we don't pay essential workers like they're essential, and we don't. We're just like, you're essential, and that's what we pay you in compliments. Mm-hmm. We just declare they're essential and mandate they work. Yep. Anageek says, plus I'm tired of being in service work, but I'm burnt out on it. Absolutely, I get that. I hope you can find something good, because you should get a job that does not make you miserable. And Blue Pointer says, yeah, there is a danger to asynchronous classes. Oh, Blue Pointer, I had a thought about that. It was really interesting. Since when do you need to show up for uni classes? You don't, but if you never show up and never participate, you will not do well. U.S. classes are different than university, at least in Germany. I know that in Germany, the class doesn't matter at all. Like the class doesn't actually matter. My understanding, of course, is that from my friends who went to German university, is that you have classes, but nobody cares about them because the class itself is completely irrelevant. You can go if you want or not. All that matters is the test you take at the end, and the test is not even created or designed by the professor. So all you have to do is just like study for this test. At the end, if you pass it, then you pass the class. But you don't actually have to go to class, or you can just, in which case, yeah, if you're doing that, then yes. But our system is different than that. Like I have classes that don't even have tests. Actually, I stopped giving, because we're doing this, last semester was the first semester back for me, but also in person. And we're back in person, but they said, we're in person and you can't do remote, but people might get COVID. So if you're going to give an exam, make sure that anybody can take the exam at any time. And I was like, oh yeah, that is not going to work out. So I just did not give any tests last semester, and I'm not going to give them any tests this semester either. So, because I don't want to have to deal with that stress when pandemic time happens. So it's all just final papers, right? So we don't even have exams. Yes, if you take university seriously, you absolutely need to show up. Yeah. Versus virtual vaccinated only if you want them. Hugs. Yeah. Max says, I don't have a sending desk, but I think I can get by with my own. I just have to move the camera. We'll see how it goes. Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Max Ryder says, I was city editor at the newspaper. Oh, that's so cool, Max. Max, I didn't know that. That's so cool. I did all the hard local news plus layout on the log page. I also covered politics in the county and the courts. Max, that is so cool. There was a really great, was it Rachel Maddow, who did a whole unit segment on local newspapers and how important they are, and how they're vital, like how vital local newspapers are, because they're the ones who are going to cover stories that big nationals are just not going to do, and they do really important work. And it was a very good story. When I had a writing class, we were only 6 people showing up for a class since it was a side class. Yeah. Versus the medical professions, human and veterinary, are really burned out right now, and they are at a huge risk. Yes. Max says, I got accident reports and stuff at Williams County Communications daily, plus writing up the court cases. I also had to cover actual trials. Elections were the worst. Yes. Javai says, and that's in Denmark too, says Ice Money, yeah. And Javai says, the majority of my classes, both in Scotland and Sweden, had some mandatory attendance, especially if there are seminars involved. Yeah. I don't have, for my lecture courses, attendance is not mandatory. I don't take attendance, but if you don't show up, you're not getting the point of the class. Seminars, you can show up or not, but participation is like a very large percent of the grade. If you're not there, you cannot participate. Esme says, you test folks in between the exams? Is that not so much school, not uni? We had to presentation. But we don't have exams. I think that's the best way to put it. You have exams in your system. You have exams, and we don't have exams. Not the way that you mean it. Like, you have exams that are disconnected from the classes. We don't. We have classes, and the teacher in that class can choose to have a test or not. You can, and some people will have like, I usually have like a midterm and a final exam. We call them exams, but for you, you could call them tests. Some people will have like 3 exams, tests throughout the year. And they're all within the class itself. They're all part of the class. They're all integrated. So I'll have exams for some classes, but not for others. I usually don't have exams for seminars, but I do for lecture courses. Sort of like different things. Yeah. Some people will have, and then what those exams are like, I make up my own exams. I decide what they're like, and my exams are very different from other people's exams. Not like, I mean, I don't do, like, I'd never grade on a curve. I don't like that. It's not my jam. I don't like it. I don't like grading on a curve. It makes me unhappy. I don't do, like, I don't do multiple choice exams. That's not my thing either. So like I get to craft the exam that will reflect the class that we did. And because, remember what I said, that I like to make sure that my lecture classes where I have my exams are tailored and personal and will change each year depending on what we do in class. And so my exams change each year. Each year I think, what did we do in class? What things did they talk about? Where were like the points of most energy? And let me make sure I can test on those things, right? So we create our own exams per each professor does, if they have exams at all. We don't have them separate. Our exams are papers where we usually do some research on top of material we do in class. Yeah, ours are totally disconnected. My teacher class I love, not only because the teacher was the director of the program I was in, nice. We did hybrid for that class, and all assignments and lectures were online, but we met twice a month to give speeches. Yeah, there are a couple other things that you miss. Let me run some diagnostics. And the outline of what kind of paper and how much text we have to produce is in the standards the government. Yeah, no, we don't have that. Not for college. Terminal access, main laboratory. Critical error, damage to data store detected. Memory malfunction detected, unable to receive data. Let's run some diagnostics. Diagnosis could not complete. Irreversible damage to processing unit. Memory retrieval. None of these formula samples, formula side effects, none of these things are found interesting. Let's go to research data. Memory corruption. There is one log found though. Let's go there. Trooper, please read what's on the screen. Yes, okay. Please note, I want to say something about some things you don't get when you're hybrid only. I'm sorry, not hybrid. Hybrid different. Hybrid is different. If you're online only, there's some certain things that you miss, and I want to talk about this. I was really worried about when we were talking about MOOCs, massive online courses, those things, and how that impacts working class people poorly compared to people who are rich and connected. I want to talk about that in a second. So, to whom it may concern, this morning I and my colleagues gathered in the reception hall. Every 10th staff member at the laboratory was released from service. I'm one of them. My indenturement contract to Spacer's Choice, which stipulates a lifetime of productive service as a researcher in the field of organic chemistry, has been terminated. I've served Spacer's Choice for most of my life. Working at the Gorgon facility is the highlight of my career. If I leave Gorgon, I will have nowhere else to go. Because my contract guaranteed my work for the duration of my life, to end that contract is tantamount to ending my life. If you have the power to reconsider your decision, I ask you kindly to reconsider. I'm willing to work without pay if necessary. This job is all I have. Please allow me to fortify my spirit by continuing to work. Respectfully, Ji Zhang. That's bad, y'all. It's bad. We do have some messages, though. Thank you for using GIMSI, your employer-sanctioned messaging system. From Ji Zhang to J. Lowe. Subject research notes. Dr. Lowe, I'm afraid I don't know where your research notes are. I search materials processing and discreetly asked the receptionist, but nothing turned up. But if I had to guess, you left them in the basement laboratory? I'd ventured down there myself, but you know how I feel about primals. I apologize for the weakness of my constitution. Sir, if your research notes do turn up in the basement, may I ask you to think favorably on me when OCI asks you for a budget review? Word around lab is that Goodfellow and the other leaders at the OCI want to make some deep cuts in our staff. If there's any truth to this rumor, I hope you'll remember that I've always supported your desire to be a better and safer version of AT. Respectfully, Ji Zhang. I wonder if it's Ji Zhang who is our person, our hanging around, being a vaguely saboteur-esque. I don't know. but I have questions. We also, however, have more stuff to look at, and also things to loot, because looting is good.
I usually just kick them down.
Oh, cool. But while we're here, I'm also going to check chat, because you're going to be saying things that are really exciting right now, and I know it, because I look, I love you. I've missed you. It's been so long since I've been able to hang out with you, and so much has been going on. I've been like, oh my gosh, I want to hang out with the foxhole, because I've not had time. Let's see. MOOCs are interesting. In that class, I was actually surprised my narrative speech went over so well, since it was related to the SCP Foundation. Oh, interesting. It was basically a roll call and a mission debriefing. Oh, that's so cool. I did some audits of intro-level classes. How late am I streaming? 3-ish. We'll play it by ear. You know, normally we normally end at 3. So, like, I don't know. And we actually started more or less on time, a little after 3-ish. A little 3-ish. The thing I miss about having a study buddy to nerd out with a class. So, what I would say is, I want to say this thing was about these big online classes before the pandemic, because I had some concerns about them. I had some concerns about these big online classes before the pandemic, and things happened that made me very, very concerned. And now the pandemic happened, so many of my concerns people are just not talking about anymore, because everyone's like, oh. But one of the things that concerned me was that UC Berkeley was talking about adding a whole bunch of MOOCs to their schedule. But the plan was to target working class students for these MOOCs, not the students who are normally going there. And I think a couple of other schools were doing the same, being that they're like, you know, basically it basically allows you to have diversity numbers without bringing those people onto campus. And those people get a second class education, and that you take their money and you give them a paper, but you don't give them anything else. Right? So it becomes a way to sort of basically take money from people. And what do you not get if you're in a MOOC that you would get if you're in person? Well, a number of things. So for example, unless you're even a community college, right? Like my university has, and my university is doing this weird thing where they're wanting to do these kind of weird MOOC things for like, and I was like, no, we voted against it. We were like, absolutely not. So if you are in a MOOC and you're not actually there in person, you do not get access to the mental health care that the students here get. You don't get access to the physical facilities that the students have access to. You don't get help. You don't get access to the job center. There are all of these things that will help you be successful later that you don't get access to because you're not here in person. In addition, one of the things I think is most important about in-person university learning, and I say this as a professor who does this all the time, is that if I get some kind of relationship with you. Now, I will note a remote class that has 6 people is different. If we're in a remote class with 6 people over Zoom, that is different because I actually get to know you some. But for these big MOOCs with like 10,000 people, et cetera, you know what is not going to be really happening? Good letters of recommendation. If I have never met you, I've never heard from you, I don't see you because there's 10,000 people, how can I write you a letter of recommendation to get into grad school or to get a job? And one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is writing letters of recommendation to people, for people. And I can write really good letters of recommendation because I know their work and I know them, because I've spent time talking to them, they've come to my office hours, et cetera, et cetera. And if they're completely remote in some kind of big, massive class, that relationship between the professor and the student is not as strong. And so those students are paying money, but they're not getting the kind of relationship with the professor that will help them be successful. They're also not getting that kind of relationship with their peers. A lot of really important work happens from peer to peer. And in a MOOC, you don't get that either. And here's another element of this that I think is very distressing. One of the problems with these big MOOCs and some of this remote teaching stuff is that it is a way for the university to exploit not just the students, but also the professors. So my lectures are my intellectual property. But when you get a MOOC, they will record your lectures, you put them on the university server, and then they have them. There was a case of a professor, an economics professor who was teaching this big MOOC. big MOOC, and there was these students who there were a couple of students who were having problems, and they wanted to try to contact the professor. This is in Utah, and they were trying to contact the professor. They couldn't get a hold of the professor. They couldn't get a hold of the professor. They tried to figure out what was going on. It turns out the professor had died a couple of years earlier. The professor was no longer even alive, but the university was still using that material from that dead professor, which meant they did not need to replace him. When he died, they did not replace him, his faculty line, with a new professor. They did not hire a new person. They just used that dead guy's lectures. And they hired some people to do TA work, but he's dead. And that means there's a whole other economics professor who doesn't get a job. And then there are these schools, because Harvard puts out these big online MOOC classes. And there was a school, it was like Cal State Fullerton maybe, that was like, you know what, we're going to just have all of our philosophy classes just be done through Harvard so they can get the best that there is. And Cal State Fullerton has faculty who are philosophy professors who work there. And they're like, hold on a second. We teach here. We are right here. Why would you replace all of our classes with classes from Harvard when we are here? And so there are ways in which a number of universities feel like if they can really embrace administrators, can embrace this model, they can make huge amounts of money off of our labor. They can not hire professors, and it's just going to screw over. And if they do, they can hire them at adjunct level, right? It's going to screw over the students. Now, does this mean I think there should be no remote teaching? No, that's not what I mean. I don't think that at all. I think there are ways I think there are some things that work really well remotely. I think there are some things that actually might be better remote than in person. There's some things that, and there are also different ways of doing remote, right? There's a big difference between a MOOC and a seminar with 6 people, right? Those things are different. And I think there's some things you can do very well remotely, and I'm all for that. But I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that there are administrators who will try to exploit this, and that the people who suffer are very often working class people. Because if you are really rich and you do take a remote class, you can still get those connections. But I will tell you this, the students who are most against, who realize that remote classes were a problem, were really rich students. And they're like, oh yeah, no. We want the network and we want all those things that we get. And they're the ones who are pushing to not be remote. And they're the ones who are not being remote, right? So those are the ones who are going right back in person so they can get all of that experience. But we end up trying to push working class and marginalized students into settings that are not going to be most helpful for them. And so I have some ethical concerns about the way that university administrations are taking advantage of both students and faculty. And I have some concerns about it, which is not to say that we can't have remote classes, because we can. I've done some that I actually felt were pretty good. But I think we have to be really mindful and careful about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and who we're doing it to, and what the model is, and who's involved in having those discussions. That's what I would say. Yes. Yeah. I have a feeling that the classes on edX and FutureLearn are not meant to replace the classes of BR Master. But they're more made for folks who want to learn something because they never have the time to sign up for their program. Except that that's not all that's happening, because edX, etc., are contracting with universities for those things. Blue Pointer, that's horrifying. It is horrifying. For me, at least, remote learning always somehow felt much more formal than in-person classes. Sure, there's some formality in person as well, but it feels much more like you can have a back and forth with teachers. It does not feel like you can do the same with remote learning. Yeah, I realize that that is in fact not based on reality, but it feels that way, and how things feel matter for how you interact with it. Javai, I'm going to say that yes, it's true that how your feelings are not always reality, which nobody wants to hear, but sometimes you feel things, but your feelings do impact your reality. And you say that it's not true that online is more formal. I think it's true that, not 100% true, that it's more remote. And you can't interact the same way. Look, I will tell you this, Twitch really worked well. I really enjoyed when I took my class on Twitch. I actually had a great time with that. It was a very good experience, a very positive experience. I thought that the Twitch medium was really good for remote classes. It did not feel it, and because it did not feel as remote, it felt less remote, and the students in the classroom felt like they had less fatigue, because there's a whole Zoom fatigue, and it felt to me as if they had less fatigue in class. They were more active, they were participating, and I actually had a really good time with it. I really appreciated that experience. I thought it was quite good, and I would not feel uncomfortable doing Twitch classes if we were going to be doing sort of things, right? Like I wouldn't feel uncomfortable with that. But again, I would have a lot of questions about the ethics of how it was done, who's involved, how that's being done, what are the ways in which we're going to make sure that students still get access to resources, including faculty resources and fellows. Like, I would have questions about how to make sure that we do things equitably and not in an exploitative way. But that experience in Zoom, in Twitch, felt much better than Zoom, which does feel very remote to me. I do my very, very best to make it not feel that way. I work really hard on that, but it is just a bit more difficult, that particular, maybe probably something about the interface and how people are trained to think about it. But I will just say that there are challenges with that I did not feel were particularly great. I think, yeah, so I feel like there are ways to do these things better and not better, but I think we have to be really mindful about the ethics of how we do these things, basically. Yeah, the only time I've ever seen full remote teaching actually work was at UAT, University of Advancing Technology. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think that you have to, and also I have to say something that's really interesting about hybrid teaching. Hybrid teaching is, it depends on what you mean by hybrid. What we have done at my university when we were in the middle of the pandemic was a form of hybrid teaching that people were doing it this semester. I was like, oh, this is bad. It was a form of hybrid teaching where some people were remote and some people were in the classroom, which was bad. It was bad. I did not like it at all. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And the reason why is because I would rather do it in Twitch with everybody being remote than doing the hybrid wherein some people, I'm in a classroom with some people also in the classroom, we're here in person, and there's a little webcam facing me for people who are just remoting in. Did not like that because that gave a differential experience to some people were actually in class and could hear everything very well. And some people were watching through a webcam and didn't get to see the rest of the classroom, what people were like. That was not good. I did not like that. If we mean hybrid in that some classes are in person and some classes are remote, that's one thing. But the university often does not have the technology to do a hybrid class very well. It always ends up being a little bit weird because there's like that. I thought was again, there's not equity in that matter. And I found that when you're doing a hybrid class where it's an in-person classroom with a webcam for some people who are not there, those people do not get to participate in this at the same level as the people who are in the classroom, and that's an equity problem for me as well. I always want to make sure that we have equity for students and that what we're doing is fair, and there are always lots of things to take into account, but I think we have to just sort of be mindful of how we're doing that so that some students, especially students who are non-traditional, right? And that might mean that they're older students or they come from working class backgrounds or et cetera, right? That they don't get they don't get punished, right? For not already knowing all these things. And so I just want to make sure that wherever we're doing ethically and that we're forwarding, a kind of a fairness, basically. Ice Buddy says, my ADHD gives me a hard time staying at home because I have such a hard time focusing on learning and writing when I'm home alone and I hear everything in the hallway and then I forget reading. I was always the one on the sofa. Yeah. Ice Buddy, it's really interesting because at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, oh, this is so much better for kids who are neurodiverse. It turns out for a lot of ADHD students, it was actually really bad. They had a really hard time being remote and it was not. So we have to sort of think about how can we work models that are going to, and I tend to be a person who is in favor of more than one model. I don't think we have to have only one model. I don't think the answer is that we should all go remote or there should never be any remote. I never think that absolute model one. I don't look, that's the whole point of early postmodernism, right? The whole point of early postmodernism, not later postmodernism, that's different. The whole point of early postmodernism is to say there is not one master narrative, right? There's not just one history, and having one history only usually serves certain types of folks with a lot of money and power. And there are multiple histories, there are multiple narratives. So it's about early postmodernism is about adding to the story and adding multiple stories and conflicting stories and allowing that sort of complexity of meaning. And so I tend to be within that sort of school that says we should have more than one way of doing things. And we should recognize that a thing that works now may not work later. For all I know, some of these things that I have concerns about technologically will be solved in 5 years. I still worry about the equity situation. But technological things might change all around. You know what I mean? And so like I just feel like it's important to be flexible and allow multiple approaches for people in different ways. That's where I'm coming from, basically. Anageek says, like in the robotics degree, they sent you equipment. Oh, that's cool. For you to code for, and then when you turned in assignments, they would have the same setup and would run programs in the lab at the campus to see if what you did worked. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. Also, sometimes some of this remote stuff requires a level of infrastructure and money that poor people don't have. And that then, like, and I saw that with these kids where they just did not have the internet for some of that, and that was a bit of a problem. 2, J. Lowe, subject, can we please? From A. Pahlavi, J. Lowe, can we please? Dr. Lowe, I think I speak for all my colleagues in the laboratory when I say I'm worried about the OCI's treatment of our facilities. I can understand dismissing 10% of our staff as a punitive measure, and I can understand cutting our deadlines in half in order to motivate us, but, and forgive me, Dr. Lowe, but I can't understand demanding that we send human inquiry our untested compounds. Many of these compounds aren't tested because we know they're failures. Increasing production means proportionally decreasing quality of enrichment, which means lower compatibility with human metabolism, which means higher rate and intensity of dangerous and potentially lethal side effects. Compound X is a highly complicated formula harvested from the waste of xenocytes. It's complicated because, unlike over 50% of Spacer's Choice's nutritional catalog, the compound was not designed for human consumption. If the good people at OCI understand the complexity of the compound we're dealing with, there's a chance they'll give us the time and resources we need. We just need to get them to understand. This is a problem of miscommunication, Jasper. Just let me go up there and give them a presentation. I'll use markers and everything. What do you think? Can we do this? From Jasper Lowe. Dr. Pahlavi, the OCI are comprised by a gaggle of carrion feeders. You go up there with your markers and your charts and your diagrams, and they'll chew the flesh off your bones and then charge me for the meal. It is absolutely critical that I finish my research in peace, and as soon as possible, without interference from OCI. So to answer your question, no, we fucking can't. Best, Jasper Lowe. Oh, Jasper Lowe. We do have some personnel files. That's what we got. Yeah. Iceman's like, that's why I do not have my MA. Anageek says, yeah, UAT is a very expensive school unless you get lucky and get a scholarship. And if you get a scholarship and they provide that stuff for you, that's awesome. Do you know what I mean? And here's the thing, it's something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of these really rich schools have really good scholarships. So sometimes it's cheaper to go to a very rich school than it is to go to a middle expensive school, right? So for example, community college, affordable, great, awesome. Sometimes like it was cheaper for me to go to a very expensive liberal arts college than it was to go to a UC, because I wouldn't be able to get the same amount of scholarship at a UC. Whereas I went to a very expensive liberal arts college and I spent a total of $10,000 over the course of 4 years total. That was my total. My total loans was $10,000 for undergraduate, and that was GI Bill, federal Pell Grants, Cal Grants, and then the university itself had scholarships. And I know that Davidson, which is a very expensive college over in the South, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, somewhere around there. It's if you get in, everything will be covered, right? They've got a setup so that you don't have to pay. And I think Harvard's pretty good at that too. But the things you have to get in. But people don't, and I didn't know that. Like, I was a poor person, and I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can afford a college. I'm so stressed out. And a friend of mine who knew these things was like, you should apply for really expensive colleges. And I was like, I can't afford to go to a really expensive college. I have no money. And they're like, yeah. Those colleges have money, and they will give you the money if you get in. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And that I find is one of the ways in which poor people often end up staying poor, is because there's a lot of knowledge that is not provided to them, because where are you going to learn it, right? My parents were poor too. They didn't know these things. And so I was not going to apply to any kind of expensive liberal arts college. And in my very first year, I didn't, right? And then my second year, my friend was like, no, apply for these fancy places. They will give you more money. And they did. And so it was much cheaper for me to go to college at an expensive school than it would have been at UC Berkeley at the time. And as a poor person, I just didn't know that. I needed somebody to tell me. If I had not had a friend who told me that, I don't know. I probably would not be here. I don't know what I would be doing, to be honest. Because if it hadn't been for that person telling me that, I would have not have gone to that liberal arts college, which meant I would not have become a. I would not have gone to grad school. I would not have be a professor right now. I don't know what I'd be doing actually. Maybe I would have. I probably would not have left Germany. I probably would still be living in Germany, working as an English teacher at a language school. Probably that's probably what I'd be doing. I'm probably still in Germany, working at like a language school. Still, it's probably what I'd be doing. Playing music here on their side. Yeah. Yeah. Scabby Neck says, in my software engineering program, you'd submit your code with a program called Try, which compiled and ran tests on it. Try was probably the most accurately named piece of software ever. Fair. Javai says, another issue with remote learning for poor students is the lack of space. Yes. Like if you are poor, you are unlikely to be able to have dedicated room for office study room. So your limited space becomes everything at all times, which is not good as well as. Yeah. Like when I was doing this work with my students, over the volunteer students over the week, they had little brothers running through, yelling with toys. Like it was very hectic. And they were so apologetic and they were so embarrassed. They were like, oh no, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it is fine. It's okay. It's okay. But I could tell it was very stressful for them, and that's rough. Okay, says Rissa. I have to go tackle the mythos. Tell chat when you have to stop stream, and then chat, keep them honest. Okay. Have fun finding the mythos, and Rissa, we'll talk more. Yeah, so basically, I just think that sometimes we don't think about the human elements of these things, and I want to think about the human elements. I am not against technology. I think technology is great. Well, it depends what you do with it. But that's the thing, right? It depends what you do with it. And I think that I think there's some things you can do really well. And actually, I think there's some things that work really well remotely or digitally. For example, or in some kind of weird hybrid situation. What has been really good, actually, has been music... oral skills programs. Like back in the day, there'd be like a person on the piano playing notes and you'd like have to name them and they would like correct you, whatever. But nowadays you could actually just get a computer program that will like do that testing for you. And you can just, now I think that's really good for practice. I think you should probably at least meet with somebody in person so they can give you strategies and talk to you and check in on you. But there are a number of things that even back in the day worked really well in computer. Like, do you remember those typing programs that taught you how to touch type? We had a hybrid. I first started on actual typewriters with a little book and all. Like, people who are old will remember. There was a book. It was bound on top and it was like a hard brown cover, I think. And you would put it on a little sort of thing, and you would open it up, and there would be these like lines of things you have to type, and you'd put it up there, and you just like work on your typing. These exercises, you type through them. And by the time I finished that semester, we'd had like an Apple IIe, I suppose it was, and there's a computer program that was like Space Invaders. And you would type that. And what was really good about that program, which was better than the book, was that program was able to adapt and adjust based on your typing. As a matter of fact, I think I want to find one of those programs so I can get my word per minute better. Because I know how to touch type because I learned back in the day. But that program was really good because it was adaptive, right? It would be like, okay, you're having a problem with this key, and then this key in this combination. It would analyze your touch typing and it would work to get you better at it adaptively. And that's a thing that like, a computer is great for that. And so like, I think there's some things that digital stuff is really, really good for, and that you could have more of it. Now, I will note that I was able to take advantage of those programs because I'd had an in-person teacher talk to us about ergonomics, about where to put your hands on the keyboard, what you should be doing with your wrist, and like, that kind of stuff. And so having a person in person to start you off was really good. And then I could then expand right with that program. So actually I think that there's some things that are really good to do online and some things hybrid, some things, what I'm saying. I'm saying is that flexibility. Yeah, I learned on a typewriter in a class. Yeah. Javai says remote work learning could be great as a properly developed alternative to in person, not as a quickly thrown thing together thing we have now. Javai, yes. Skibbernick says, yep, the spiral bound book. Yes, it was spiral bound, right? And the sheet of paper over your hands if you kept looking. Yes. You talk about double that. My dad had like 80 to 90 words per minute. My dad worked at a newspaper, and he was a writer, and he got up to like I never got to 90. Like in my army, because in the army, the job I had in the army, which was Intel, we had to take typing tests. It was part of our qualifications, and I never got up to 90. I think it was up to 50. I think that was like my best. I was like working at 50, but like my dad was like, yeah, you can do over 100. Oh man, 100 words per minute is impressive. I remember watching my dad type on a manual typewriter, and he would just like he was I was always so impressed. I was like, oh man, there's certain weird skills that are slightly outdated that I'm a little bit. Do you want to know? Can I tell you a skill that I don't have, and I don't know if I could practically acquire it, and I don't think I will, but I would like it. I was always obsessed with dictation. Shorthand, right? You know those the little notebooks with the line down the center, and people would take shorthand and they were able to write shorthand really, really quickly with their weird little symbols. And I always thought, I want to learn shorthand. That seems so cool. That seems like a kind of like a coded language, and how awesome that would be. We just don't do that anymore. But I also hope that there are people who still know how to read shorthand, because there are probably things written in shorthand, and what we need to know what those things say. But I always thought it would be really cool to know shorthand. What's impressing me is shorthand. Yes. See? Scabbynack knows, right? What's that little squiggle mean? And I always wanted to know shorthand. I always thought that would be so cool. Anyway, from T Meadows. Y'all, I've missed you all. I want you to know that I have missed you, and I'm going to read this text. Also, did you all want to learn how to do shorthand? Am I the only person that really wanted to learn how to do shorthand? I always thought that would be so cool. I always thought that would be so cool. I still feel like if I could have like if I had like a minor wish, you know what I mean? Like if I had like a minor wish, like nothing really good, I could be like, could you just port shorthand in my mind and body? That would be cool. Like cantrip style. Ice Money says, yeah, my dad tried to force me to do such a secretary class for typing, but with my dyslexia, I was not sure if I made the mistakes because of dyslexia or because I was doing the program wrong. And then it was winter, and I fell in the icy street and I hurt my arm, so no typing class for you. Yeah. Onigi says, I can only write shorthand for taking notes, otherwise I can't do it. Scabbyneck says, my mom was a court reporter. Scabbyneck, your mom was a court reporter? That's really cool. I've always found them really impressive as well. Like, Blue Putter, stenography is still cool. Stenography is cool, right? Like, I think steno is super cool. There are a bunch of things I think are cool like that. Stenography, I think, is really cool. I know this is, I know there are some of you here will know what I'm talking about, some of you will not. I really wish that I could read and write Fraktur. And I know I could practice it. But Fraktur is a style of writing that Germans did in the German-speaking countries, this German-speaking lands did, but it went out of favor probably in the 20s, 30s, 40s. By the time we finished World War II, nobody's writing in Fraktur anymore. It's not really a thing, but it was a style of handwriting that was a German style of handwriting, and it looks like a bunch of jagged lines is what it looks like, Fraktur. I wonder if I can... And the thing is, a lot of older German texts are written in Fraktur. And if you have not learned how to read it, there's another thing. It's not just Fraktur. It's no, I'm not thinking Fraktur. I lied to you. It's not Fraktur. That is not the one I'm thinking of. It is the other one. It's, no, it's not, because Fraktur is that kind of, Fraktur is a bit more calligraphy. It's not Fraktur. Yes, Schmelzer, yes, that's it. Sutterlen. That's the one I want to learn. Not Fraktur, but Sutterlen. Sutterlen. The U umlaut was always very hard for me. That's the one letter that is difficult for me to do. I find the difference between an U and an U to be very difficult. Sutterlen. So pardon me, I got American on that one. I'm very, very sorry. I find an umlaut to be difficult. But look up Sutherland. You can read it. Oh, your brother learned. Did he do history stuff? So it is here is an example of what, and this is a very clean and crisp example of Sutherland, as opposed to what people are doing. You think of it kind of like cursive. Think of it a bit like cursive in English. It's like cursive, but it is not easy to read. But yes, think of it sort of like cursive is what I would is how I would describe it. That's what I would say. Yes, cursive, right? But it's just it's gone out of style. People don't read it anymore or write it. They don't get taught it. But there's just a lot of really weird, random things that I would be into. Yeah, my omas and her parents did write in Sutherland, and I can read their handwriting. Ah. Actually, now that we think about it, I think a bunch of people don't know how to read cursive anymore. Right? I think a bunch of folks can't read cursive. People have thoughts about that. From T Meadows. Today we received our updated timetable from management, courtesy of Mr. Goodfellow. 6-week deadlines are now 3-week deadlines. Some of my colleagues have been sacrificing sleep in order to meet these deadlines. Others have been medicating themselves with very small doses of enriched compound X in order to combat the fatigue. Work fortifies the spirit, so we will carry on. I count myself fortunate to have been spared in the decimation. By the way, they're using the word decimation properly. Nice. My former colleague, decimation being getting rid of 1/10. If Prax were here, Prax would make a comment about that. My former colleagues have nowhere to go. Their departure corresponded with a few critical doses of enriched compound X disappearing from our storage. Correlation does not imply causation, so I will not imply that. I am concerned by the side effects of compound X. Even in its refined state, repeated use damages the synaptic patterns of the brain. Paranoia, violence, psychosis, and intense anxiety will haunt a repeated user for the rest of their short lives. But our enrichment process does not combat the side effects of the compound X. We were close to a breakthrough, but the damage to our research terminals is irreversible. Ooh, interesting. So they might be able to do something that would be less gross. My hope is that human inquiry will see the effects of this compound in their own tests and then report these tests to creative incubation. If incubation is as chilled by these results as I am, they may provide us with more time and more resources. Oh, that sounds like that is not gonna happen. Interesting. So our scientists were on the point of maybe being able to get this compound to not be gross and terrible, but then everything got messed up. Interesting. Unplanned sabotage. From B. Gautier. A moment of silence for my wretched batch of enriched compound X. The elegant complexity of your molecular structure manifested in the hallucination of my own sleep-deprived mind. 30% lower rate of addiction, 75% compatible with human metabolism, and with a side effect coefficient of just 0.65. You are our most promising compound yet. Yet human inquiry would have been delighted to pour you into a syringe and stick you inside a test subject. You are destroyed in unplanned sabotage event, which is to say that Mr. Morsley's fancy tables couldn't predict this would happen. You are almost perfect. Our lab will never see the likes of you again. Compound X is notoriously difficult to enrich. Its molecular structure is fussy. In small doses, the compound provides a massive boost to energy and productivity. The clever buggers at OCI do not seem to understand this principle, and have asked us to increase our dosage with every batch. High dosage compound X is even harder to enrich. And a poorly enriched, poverty-stricken chemical has none of the protective layers that inhibit dangerous side effects. So what we have is a cocktail of very bad side effects chased down with one massive rush of euphoric energy. Pleasant but incredibly dangerous. I can only hope HIA's reports agree with my assessment. They don't. I feel like HIA is sketch-tastic. I hope, are we going to learn like the other side of the story? Because right now it looks like a bunch of corporate greed and corporate malfeasance that seems to be the fault of, human inquiry. That said, there's a door we did not open that I feel like we should probably just check into while we're here. Also, please note, I am playing the game. Like, it's a whole full game playing that is happening right now, and I hope you are very proud of me for this massive and productive... I wonder what that was. Game playing. Oh, I do not have the lock picking, but I wonder if I do, um, if I eat food, because I'm currently a little bit diminished for lack of fooding. Let's just check to see. Uh, skills? Lock picking. Oh, food addiction withdrawal. I bet if I eat food right now, I'll be able to pick that lock. And let's do it. Let's eat some heavy food. I feel like this moldy Raptidon meat is heavy, and let's eat it. And then I should, oh, that's 150. I can't crack that no matter what. I need some kind of massive insane skills, and I just ate Raptidon meat for no reason. And I'm sure Raptidon meat is kind of gross tasting. Right? This is, thoughts? Thoughts, it's fine.
Roscoe, it's Georgie. If you're hearing this, you must still be holed up at the Sprat Shack. And you're not gonna like this one bit. I was trying to steal our recordings when things went crazy. I know. Like I said, sorry. And I'm gonna be in a heap of trouble if I don't get them, so if you want to save my bacon, you need to do it for me. I need the 3 interviews we did with Ambrose, this one here, plus another recording of my own. I left that last one with a guy who owed me a favor at the garbage processing office in the chemical waste ravine. I'll leave an automech near Stellar Freighting. It'll want all 5 recordings, plus a passphrase. Glacial Age. Oh, and don't listen to my log, alright? Just stay safe and keep your head down.
Okay. All right. Okay. Interesting. We will look into that. We're also going to take a lot of these bits and pieces. I'm sure they'll be useful for something. If not, we'll sell them for parts. I don't know. We're leaving. We're going to a whole other area because we're being productive. Also, did we? I feel like we haven't actually ransacked this entire area before we move forward, and I feel like we should do that. Can I jump down here? Yes. Also, now that we were so productive, I get to reward myself by reading chat some more. Just, I've missed you. I've missed you all a lot. Just for the record. History, Schmelzo says. History did some research for pre-World War I Germany. Did you want to make a comment about decimation? Oh, just basically that decimation means you kill 1/10 of the population. And so they use the, well, you know, you get rid of 1/10, and they used it properly. Where do you think that goes? Nowhere interesting. That's all. I can read cursive, but I don't like to because some people have horrible handwriting, even cursive. Yeah. Hey, Artie. Hey, Artie, how are you? Artie, how are you? I just want to say hey. Also did a workshop in diversive handwriting when I tried history. Oh, yeah. Deciphering handwriting. Yeah. I'm glad that you got your computer back up and running. This is the whole point of the game. It is, Artie, you're correct. It is the whole point of the game. And I'm just noting they do a very good job of making me feel like, hey, y'all are not doing the right thing. Now, I will say, Artie, it is running. It is not finished. I still have, oh, hi. I still have a bunch of software that I need to, let's do that. I still have a bunch of software that I need to update. Reinstall. And I gotta tell you, the reinstallation process is super irritating. I don't know how to put this any other way. Is the best way I can put this. Yeah, it's really irritating. I feel like you know that. I feel like you understand how irritating this process is. So I went to, there's a room that we have not gone in, and that's over here that we should check out. You know what I didn't do? I didn't go and loot that body. Let's loot it. and then check that other room. Just real quick. While we're here. I like to be methodical. And the reason, look, I'm sure you all wonder why I'm so methodical about these things. It's because sometimes, here's why. Because I only play the game once a week, theoretically. Sometimes less than that.
Whether you're in a fancy lab or an old rust bucket, one thing's for sure.
What?
No one cleans the common area.
There are dead bodies here. I feel like this is perhaps a little bit unnormal. Anyway, I feel like if I'm very methodical, then I don't miss something when I've not played it in like 2 weeks or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, it's like just a way to make sure that I don't miss something important. So that's what that's about. I wanted to tell you all something. You're doing all right. I've been consumed by No Man's Sky. Oh, I've been playing No Man's Sky a little bit. I haven't had time. Computer. Updating. Yeah. Yes, and the thing about this is that I can't migrate. Because you know what? Oh, I didn't finish that story. I wanted to finish that story for you all.
Use this thing. Is it what? Oh, the barrel's turning. All right. I feel like an absolute idiot barking into this horn. I shouldn't have let Lucien talk me into this. What use do I have with audible notes? Posterity my ass. Great fucking law. What's it doing now? Jasper! Jasper, it's... How do I turn it off? It won't. Just press the button. The what? Oh, for law's sake, the button, Ollie. Accursed thing.
I wonder what happened to her. I mean, I assume she's dead, right? I mean, that's probably how this goes, right? She's yes, right? Right? That's... So here's the thing I wanted to tell you about my computer. I wanted to share this story with you because I thought you would find it interesting. Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. So the timing was very bad, although the timing could have been worse. It could have been this week rather than last week, because Kolos is this coming week. And so if my computer had died then or during my remote Gen Con work, or that all would have been really bad. And luckily, the work I was doing with those high school students, I could do on my iPad because I could zoom in on the iPad. So that was not the worst. Anyway, my computer is not fully restored. That is going to take more time, but it's at least functioning. I need to download Dropbox. There's things I still need to do, but not the point. The point is I want to tell you a story. Wait, we should go there, shouldn't we? Yes. We're going to go there. The story that I wanted to tell you is this. I got my very first computer. So again, right, you all know I did not grow up with money. So I never had a computer. My family never had a computer. I had a typewriter, which was cool. That was awesome. I had a nice manual typewriter, but I never had a computer. That said, I was very much a computer geek without having one. And so I would always go to the scientist with vodka. Awkward. I would always go to the computer lab. Like I would either go to the computer at school. We had little computers at school and I would go there. Or if I didn't use the computers in school, I would go to the San Francisco Public Library and they had a computer. And so I was always forever on computers, and I would do a thing where employers' rights. Under the Biased Labor Standards Act, wage determined by merit of your work. Outcome may result in higher pay if the quality of said work is considered exemplary. Your employer has the right to dock your pay should you damage any facilities or equipment. It is your responsibility, not your employer's, to avoid workplace hazards. Great. Do not like. Huh. I do like that view, though. That's very nice. Oh, hey. Looks like we can't go in here. But I can pick it. Yes. Guess what we found? Things to loot. I was telling you about computers. That's the thing I wanted to share. We learned handwriting reading in connection with archive work. Yeah, that makes sense. And my group was at the archive in the town hall of Copenhagen. And our case was about the protest against in modern words, sex work in Fabro Street, and the people tried to make the complaint, wrote letters in Latin, not Gothic, and we were just, working out. You would always go to the scientist with vodka, absolutely. So here's the thing. I was learning how to program BASIC in the BASIC language, and I was always and forever messing with programs. I'd go into the computer lab, and I'd start a program, and then I would, because back in the day, if you did a force quit of your program, you could actually then access the code. That was old school. People who did programs written in BASIC, you'd force quit it, and then you could actually go and then list the code. And then what I would do is I'd force quit all these programs so that I could list the code, and then I'd print out the code on that little dot matrix printer, because that is what I would do. And then I would go and study the code. So I did a bunch of that kind of stuff, but I never had my own computer. And I got my very first computer when I was 29. I always just basically used computers from school, because I never had one of my own, and neither did my family. Nobody in my family had one. But I got my very first computer when I was a senior in undergraduate, so I was 28 probably. And hey, do you think this armor is really good? What do you think? It's what is this? This is medium armor. I wear medium armor, and it is that's light at 19, and that's medium at 40, and that's a 42. I don't use melee weapon skills, so I feel like that's not gonna be really interesting. But that's hack. What kind of armor am I wearing? We're gonna check this out. I also don't even know if I can afford it, but I am interested in finding out. What am I wearing? Oh, no, I'm wearing an armor that has 83, so clearly that's not even interesting at all. So we're not even going to pay attention to that. That's not even a thing. Yes. Latin's way right now, so we could read the documents with a problem. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the advantages of being an only child. Right? So, I used to do that all the time. And I would... Yeah, so I was like a computer nerd, but it was limited because I didn't have my own computer. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't... I could do as much as I could. And look, I would sit at the library. I must have been. I feel like it was pretty great for my parents, right? Because I'd be like, "Hey, mom and dad," in the summer. "Hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go to the San Francisco Public Library." And I would go to the main one. It was like a long bus ride, so I take the long bus down to downtown, go to the library, and because it was the downtown main library, people they had 2 or 3 computers total, but they were usually, and I think there's a time limit, but only if there was somebody there, and people were not there. So I would sit there for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. I'd go all day at the main library and just be there all day working on the computer, just playing a game or working with stuff. And I would do that all day, and then I would come back, and so my parents would just not see me for large stretches of time in the summer because I was in the library working on the computer. But I know that if I had my own computer, like a Tandy or whatever, I probably could have done a lot more with coding. I could save, I would save things a little floppy disk, right? But I could do more. But I did what I did. Blue Pointer says, I got my first PC when I was in my early 20s, so relatable. Right, you get it. And so I got my first computer when I was a senior in college, and I got it because I was going to grad school, and I figured I needed a laptop. So I got this laptop. It was a Mac. It's like a MacBook Pro. And this is what I need to tell you all. From that time, I've not had that many computers, right? I had a MacBook Pro, and then sometime in grad school, I got an iMac. And then sometime later, I had to... So basically, I've had a couple of computers, but from, let's say, 2000 till today, I've gone through a couple of computers, all of which I still have, which I need to recycle some of those. But I've always migrated the data, right? So I get a new computer, and then I do the migration assistant, and I migrate the data from the old computer to the new computer. So the computer that I'm currently looking at, before I had to do that full wipe, had stuff from 2000 on it. And when I say stuff, I don't mean... Well, it did technically have some files from AppleWorks, which I don't think I can open anymore. I can find a way. But it had the thing about computers that you can delete programs, but sometimes when you delete the program or uninstall it, it doesn't uninstall everything. There are little things hiding in the preferences here or there. And so if I had 22 years worth of little mysterious things in the background hidden somewhere that I didn't know about, I'm sure. So even though this complete fresh wipe and reinstall of the OS is terrible and is kicking my ass, I'm not migrating stuff over. Also, I kind of can't because I had to upgrade the OS as part of the process. So I could not do the automatic migrate. I also didn't think it would be a good idea to do the automatic migrate because something was wrong in my software. So there was something wrong with the system, with the software. Something was causing a problem, which was causing the computer to crash because the hardware's fine. And I did not want to migrate everything over and also migrate that problem. So I didn't want to migrate it over because there was clearly something wrong going on in there somewhere. And then I really couldn't because I had to upgrade the OS and my backups were in it. There was like a disconnect there. Plus, I also had 20 years worth of stuff on that computer, 22 years worth of stuff. And I thought it would be better. And we're talking like system extensions and plugins and weird preference files. And I thought it'd just be better to just do a clean install and then one by one, by hand, move the programs over. And so I've been doing that. I've been moving over a lot of programs by hand. And then, of course, the problem is that there are these programs that have preferences and libraries that I do not want to lose. I did take a backup of the computer itself, so I have my entire library and preferences folder, but it's not always as easy as just dragging your preference folder from one library to the next to get it work. Some things, I've dragged those things over and they still don't recognize it. So some things I've lost. I was able to get a hold of Rogue Amoeba, which is where I have a lot of systems set up for like audio stuff, and they told me how to do it, so that was fine. I was able to get OBS to recognize everything except for the Stream Deck, but I got that fixed this morning. So it's just really slow. It takes a really long time. I spent like an hour the other day and I got 4 programs transferred over, and I have a lot of programs. So it's going to just take a while before my computer is fully transferred. And I'm really worried about backups. Like I want to back up the computer so I don't lose it in case something happens. So it's just really a long, slow process that is super irritating. And oh, hey, look at these very cool weapons. We made the deal that we're going to get rid of anything that's under level 30. That was the deal we made. So anything under level 30 we're selling. That's the story. Because just selling it. If it's under level 30, we're selling it. I don't know if that's a lot of those weapons. I don't think we need that many of those. What is this? This is base damage is 770. I know I have a way better weapon than that. Let me think about that. Let me see what chat has to say. Chat, I've missed you so much. Sorry, I realize that's boring, but I have missed you, and I realize I should probably be more. Oh, look, you've got a level 37? What have you got? Like, 33. Not everything you've got is better. I don't know if I need... I just don't know if I actually need... Trying to be really good about these things. So I feel like I probably don't need all of these, but maybe I could use some of them. But that's a lot of these pistols, and I don't have a lot of money. So I'm gonna sell all of them except for 2. And if I need those 2, then we'll just deal with that. And I'll just sell one of those. I just feel like if I, you know, I'm trying to be good because I'm trying to be responsible, you know, trying. These are all above level. I don't think I need all of that. So we will not have... I might need 1, but I don't think I need them all. So, great. And these fancy things, I feel like we're supposed to keep for some kind of reasons. And also, I think I need some of these Spacer Choice things for a quest. So I'm gonna try to... Yeah, I've got a quest thing I've got to deal with. But there. Look, I sold stuff. Be proud of me. Be proud of me. I sold stuff. I feel like Krellin should be proud of me. Maybe. Okay, let me see what people are saying in chat. Look, I want to talk to you about what's going on with Kolos, but I can't talk to you about it. But like, hey, what do you think's back there? I've got like very excited. Very excited. I'm very excited. I also am less excited that I didn't have the time that I wanted to. Do you not have the time? I lost a week and a half right before the semester started, and right before COLA started, and right before a bunch of other things started, which is not ideal. But you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. Also, I'm super under encumbrance and everything. Right? I just note all of that. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I've missed you all, and I want to tell you something that I'm proud of. And why do I have 6 weapons? Why do I have 2 weapons with a really low? Oh, one's a shotgun. That's why. That's why it's the shotgun. Don't worry about it. I got it. I got it. I got it. We're good. And in case we need to, I just want to. I have no junk. We're good. We're good. I'm full of joy and happiness. And then I'm gonna check our map because I wanted to see this place. This area looks like it goes to more important things, including our quests, which means I want to go down this way instead. Maybe. I think this area. So we're gonna go here. I don't know how I feel about it, but that's what we're gonna do. But I'm gonna check chat. Ice Bunny says, I pulled a prank. I pulled such a prank telling someone that you need to feed a computer mouse cheese and that you connect the mouse via tail to kill the computer early 90s, and she was buying it. Oh my goodness. Ice Shield says, I always felt out of place by never having a MacBook laptop. My college campus was lousy with them. I have a point in that. Toyboat Sailor, how are you? I need to work and lurk, but I want to say hello. Hi, Toyboat. I've missed you. Missed you. I will only be proud if you're not over. I'm not over encumbered. I'm not under encumbrance. I'm at 289 out of 350. Huh? I'm under encumbered. I'm very. See? I'm super under encumbered. Picks up more stuff. I'm super under encumbered. So here's like a deadly thing. Can I shoot it? Doesn't look like that matters. So instead, we're just gonna save. We're gonna save. We're gonna save. So anyway, I just it's really slow, and it's much slower than I thought it would be, mainly because the data structure between the OSs have changed. So where things were before are not necessarily where they are now. So it's a lot of like searching to find out where things should be now. So it's very slow. It's very irritating. But I think and it's also terrible timing. But I think in the end, this will make my computer leaner and better. I'm putting everything on an external hard drive. I'm feeling bad that I do not have multiple backups at this moment because I would be very sad if all of the work I've done so far somehow died because, you know, a hard drive died. And the hard drive I've got is what is it? It's one that I normally use LC, and I think this is actually not. I think this is a different one. Anyway, I'm a little paranoid about it. Is what it is, and I've got. I want to tell you about my paranoia. Hey, do you think I can sneak up on this sentry and hack it? Do you think I can do it? Let's see. Hack. Oh, hey, hi, how you doing? Let's just do that, and then, oh, hey, look, I can read information about it. Oh. I can read information about it when I'm in the zoomy place. That's really interesting. Also, this thing has a lot of health. just like a lot of health. It's very, very hard to kill. What are we shooting? What are we shooting at? Where is this enemy? What are you shooting at? Oh. Okay. Oh, it was my friend. I hacked it. Level up, everybody. Feeling good about it. We're going to have that conversation that I always have with you where I'm trying to remember what it was I wanted to level up and I can't remember. And then you're going to try to remind me what it was I wanted to level up. And then it's going to be awkward. That's the conversation we're going to have right about now. Because I actually don't remember what it was I was going to level up on. I feel like if I look, then I'll see. But maybe I won't. I don't know. Let's level up, shall we? Look, whatever happens, we've been productive today because we leveled up. And I'm going to just say that for the record. But I'm also going to chat.
The effects of Compound X are inescapable. The refined excrement of the xenocyte life form. It's a fine powder. Very fine. It finds its way into absolutely everything.
Huh.
Even in the water now, and the air. It settles like a veil over all of Gorgon.
Oh, that's bad.
The laboratory techs get the worst of it. We all appreciated the boost to mood and productivity at first, but we're at each other's throats in an instant now. I've had to break up 2 fistfights this week alone. This aggression must be inherent to the formula, to Compound X. How do I stop it?
Well, that seems bad. I feel like there's a sci-fi, maybe there's an episode of Star Trek, maybe? Old series, something about, like, the environment itself. Do you remember what I'm talking about? I feel like it might have been a Yes, I feel like it was a Star Trek episode. Do you remember what I'm talking about, everybody? A Star Trek episode where the planet itself had some kind of compound on it. Was it the one where nobody grew old? Was it Miri? Was it that one? Was that the one? Where, like, when you hit, like, puberty, like, you went crazy and killed each other or whatever, so, like, it was only kids? Was that the one? Like, there was, like, something about the environment. I feel like I know what I'm talking about, and I feel like somebody else knows what I'm talking about and can actually correct it. So let's see. We have no defense, which is fine, because who cares about defense? We might have been wanting to do... So... Sneak is 60, hack. I think we wanted hack, right? Yes? I think we wanted hack. I think that was our deal. Right? Yes. Yes? Yes? I do think at some point we want, like, medical as well. Because if we get medical, I think I can get that... I can open up that extra drug slot, which would not necessarily be a bad thing. But, also, I think I can up my persuade now, which... Yes, not having hack is making me sad. So we're going to just up our hack. We're going to just up that hack. Yes, and we're going to get 100 hack pretty soon, and then I will be happy. That is a thing that we're going to do. I'm going to note it. Is there anything else that I feel like we can now go over 100, and maybe I should with something. But I will think about that when we get there. We're going to get our hack up to 100. So then I can hack at a distance. And then we're going to maybe up our... I don't know. Maybe we won't up our sneak. I can't say. But we definitely want to up our hack to 100. I feel like we should maybe get engineering up to 60. Because that gives us a bonus. Or maybe medical. I feel like we could maybe go with engineering or medical after that. I also feel like we should probably get handguns up to 80. Because if we get up to 80 with handguns, we'll get another thing. But I also use long guns not insignificantly. So if I got my long guns up to 60, I would get... So I feel like I have a melee damage of 9 and 6. That's really bad. But I feel like I could maybe get handguns, long guns, right up to something. But we'll ponder that. Back and let me apply. Accept. No, I did the hack. I did the hack. I did it. Hey, Prax, we were talking about you. I was talking about you. We were actually not even talking about you, but I mentioned you. No. I wrote down. I did it. I did the hack. We're gonna get the hack up to 100. I did it. I totally did. I did it. I did. The board is scared of me. They do not like me. That's cool. It's cool. Because Caroline says I have to say it. Trooper, write down goals and stick to them. Okay. I'll have to be reminded, I think. Probably. So they use the word decimate in this game accurately, and I thought about you because I thought Prax would appreciate that they used the word decimate properly. Let's see. Shots from Ellie's ability. Yeah, we're going to do magic bullets. We're going to just give you full bonuses along your line. Absolutely. And then Nyoka, how about you? We should probably let you get some of this stuff going on. Location discovery experience, sneak attack damage. Ooh. I do like to sneak people at the attack. But getting more XP means that we level up faster. However, yes, no, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this one because more levels means more points to do this. So, apply. Yes. Done and done. Done and done, y'all. Okay. Great. And we're now going to just explore this area a little bit. Yes. Apparently text-to-speech corrected Krellin to Caroline. Caroline, by the way, is a great song by Concrete Blonde. So, there's that. Yeah, Krellin, you are sweet. That is correct. I would always appreciate when someone uses the word decimate appropriately. Time of Gift says, the only problem is, now one of Trooper's goals will be to bring his encumbrance to the full 350. You know, there was an article that I did not read that I thought to myself, oh, I should read this, but then I didn't. And it was about Sweet Caroline and, like, the life of that song, like, how it got to be where it's at right now. I assume it's mostly sports, right? I assume that's basically some kind of Boston sports thing is why people are obsessed with that song, although it's in bars a lot, too. So, I can't say about that. I feel like people might have some insight that I do not have about the weird... I don't know. I feel like people have a weird relationship to that song that I don't feel 100% comfortable with. Because I'm not certain what they're doing with that song. Like, I don't know if they're making fun of the song or if they sincerely like the song, and I kind of would like to know what's up there. That's what I'd like to know. I want to know when people are like all into Sweet Caroline, if they like it or if they are making fun of it. That's what I want to know. Making a list historically does not work well for people with ADHD. I gotta tell you what's interesting though is that lists actually are good for me in some ways. Because if I don't put it on a list, I will completely forget about it. Completely. Now, being on a list doesn't mean that it's gonna happen, but I sometimes forget to actually make the list or to check the list. But there are things I have not put on a list and I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do this thing and I forgot. So that sometimes happens. Hank Green made a video about that song and its memory and how he and John try to get audiences to unmeme it at their live shows. Oh, how do you unmeme it? The answer is if their name is in a vowel or the Red Sox fans they sincerely like. They sincerely like the song. Okay. I want to see showing why anyone who sings along with that song, that they inwardly sing the ba-ba-ba part. Cheaper, are you excited for the 29th? Trooper, yes I am. Yes I am. Wait. Not the 21st? 22nd? Wait. Hold on. Wait a second. The 29th? Wait, I should not check that here. I should check that here, because that'll make it more easy. Wait a minute. Wait. I thought we were starting tomorrow on the 21st. No? Are we starting on the 29th? I thought we were starting on the 21st. No? Yes, no? Yes, no? Tell me more. Prax, did I... Look, my computer was dead, and I was not present. What have I missed? I feel like I've missed something. I thought we were starting on Monday. No? Yes, no? What? Yes, no? I think both, Trooper. People like it but don't want to admit they like it, so they make fun of it, like a schoolyard crush. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. It's the Baba part they try to unmeme. Ah, just trying to get the audience to keep quiet. Oh, that's interesting. We're going to start on the 29th Monday because I see. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know, because I was like all ready to go on Monday. And I have to update my calendar like, whoa. Yes, I am. I did hear the sky is so pretty, all purple, peachy, orange, and pink. I mean, I think I'm ready to go on Monday too, but Simon can't talk. Oh. We need to make our coterie stuff, right? I heard that our 4th is going to be missing a little bit. Beginning will come in a little bit later, is what I've heard. Because of madness. Probably college stuff. I don't know. Dear sir or madam, this is an automated message triggered by the Spacer's Choice Contingency Management Program. Please do not respond to this message. Congratulations! Contingency number 77-1, abundance of raw material, is now in effect. Due to a higher than projected volume of Compound X harvested in this laboratory, your production quotas have been raised by 200%. Please bear in mind that bi-weekly quota reviews are automatically generated and forwarded to Project Gorgon Administration and the Office of Creative Incubation. Any dereliction in production will be reflected in your review. I have a comment about that when it comes to factory work. Experimental notes? Not found. Failed. Okay, 1 log. A lot of physical... Somebody wrecked this place. I think they did it to save people. I don't know. Experiment. This is S. Dunlop, junior researcher. Enrichment of compound... This is the Harvesting, Enrichment, and Molecularization Lab. Enrichment of Compound X. Attempt 89. Expose Compound X sample to N-ray concentrate for 30 seconds. Consulted research notes. Notes incomplete and damaged. Expose Compound X sample to N-ray concentrate for 60 seconds. Sample failed. Toxicity levels high. Disposed. Expose Compound X sample for attempt 90. Woke up. Fell asleep at table. Sample failed. Overexposure to lab atmosphere. Toxicity levels high. Disposed. Researcher's addendum. Unplanned sabotage event destroyed any relevant research notes. Forced to rely on outdated notes. Expected time lost 6 to 16 months. Attempt to replicate research unsuccessful. We'll try again after resting eyes for a minute. This seems real bad. Somebody did not want this project to succeed. And that may not be a bad thing, considering this project seems sketchy. I think that's the best way I would put it. It seems sketchy. Can I, Oop. I don't think there's anything very exciting over here that I need to think about, so I will not. I will just try to escape this spot. I think we should walk around that catwalk, and then I think we're done with this room. And then we can go to a different room. Thoughts? Yes. Yes, the 4th will be later. Maybe secrets. Wait, are you vamping without me, Trooper? We might be. No. See, so the thing is, it's one of the things that I was like, I cannot announce this thing. But a tweet was put out, so I think I can say about it now, right? I can say, because it was put out. Prax, say I can say. I can say, right? Yes? Yes. 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 Okay, good. I can say. So we did all of that. I think the one thing we should probably do before we leave is just check out that... We want to go eventually down that door, but there's some stuff down here that I thought we could just check out. And I think that this walkway... Oh. I feel like this walkway goes the same way we would go the other route. So I think rather than going actually this way, we're going to go the official doorway and then sort of see if there's a walk around, basically. Just try to get everything in Okay, good. We're good. Yes. Okay, so... I mean... I hope I can say it. So yeah, I was... Simon, Wandering DM, is putting together a VTM game, and it's going to be running on Mondays, starting on the 29th, and it's Montreal by Night. That's what it's called, and it's set in Montreal. And we are going to be doing... Oh, we're going to be doing some vampire stuff, is what it is. And it's Prax is in it. I'm in it. Pope is in it. And
that much ordnance could take down a mana queen. Bit over the top, don't you think?
I do actually think so. But I also think I can probably just shoot a bunch of stuff and be fine. There's something going on. What's going on with me? Wait, something's happening to my body. What's happening to my body? Wait. Something's happening to my body. I have got... What's happening? Why is my strength low? Wait, what's happening? Drink... Oh, I think I must have drunk something that I shouldn't have drunk. Perhaps? Oh, I think I actually drank alcohol accidentally, not food. I was gonna eat Raptidon meat, and then I didn't. So we're gonna actually go around, because why would we? I'm drunk. I'm drunk. Just for the record, I just want you to know that there's a drunkenness happening right now. And you know what? Let's just jump over it, shall we? We can do that. I hope my friends don't die. Yep. You should have jumped over that. I'm sorry, but it's a lot of ordnance. I bet Ubisoft is part of the technocracy. No, that's EA. I'm really drunk right now. You lived in this world. I think most people would be drunk as often as possible. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, look at all this tech that we get to loot. Because why wouldn't we loot? Oh, you know what I really think? I think that we'll probably go to like 3:30 maybe ish. And then I just want you to know how proud I am of... I think that we're going to do... I think this is... I feel like we've done progress. I realize that mostly we've done a lot of talking because I've missed you all. I've not been able to talk to you, and it's been like where are my buddies? But... What? Encumbrance? I'm not encumbered yet. I'm totally fine, and I can stop anytime I want. You know. There was something... Didn't any of you play, Deus Ex? Way back in the day? I can stop anytime I want. I just don't want to. And I feel like this is a awesome Spacer's Choice area that I'm not getting about too much. I don't know what they are making here. Yeah, so it's gonna be a vampire game, and I am excited. We are currently 3, but we've got a 4th who will be joining us a bit later, and I'm really interested to see how this is going to go, like how it's going to shape out, and what our characters are going to do, and what they're going to be like, and how the world will sort of shape up. Yes, those are things that I'm like, oh, how's this going to go? Um, you are no. I'm committing. I'm committing to 3:30, Krellin. I'm committing to 3:30. 100% committed to 3:30, and you can all. I mean, it might end up being like 3:35, but I'm but my goal is 3:30 because um, I have to do laundry. I have one pair of clean underwear left, which means there's a hole here that I almost fell in. I didn't even realize there was a hole here, and that would have been awkward. So let's just back up and not fall in the hole. 3:30-ish, but because I've got to do a pick up Tanaka's Peacekeeper. Ooh. Cool. Because, I have one pair of clean underwear left. And when does a person do laundry? I don't know when you all do laundry, but I do laundry when I run out of underwear. That is the laundry time. Laundry time is, have I run out of underwear? That's when I do laundry. Yes. I played Deus Ex, but not way back in the day. More recently. Oh. That was Krellin. Two things. Krellin, you didn't finish it. What did you think about it? How is your... the graphics are very old. What was your relationship to the graphics of the game? Why didn't you finish it? What do you think you would have felt differently had you played it when it came out? I would like your assessment of your experience playing Deus Ex now. That's what I would like, because I'm interested. And then Krellin, There's a Hole in the Bucket, Dear Liza. I love that song. I just want you to know that. I like singing it. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. There's this thing, me and my friends would just sing it, just over and over again. I don't know why. Mine is run out of work uniforms. Fair? Beetlewind says, today I spent 2 hours looking for my USB stick with some vital work info on it. Folks, it was already plugged into my laptop. Hey, I actually ended up getting... It's wild, right? I haven't had any... I ended up getting... I had to go when I... trying to fix my computer, right? I went and I got some of these USB flash drives, which I haven't had since back in the day, because I wanted to make these bootable drives so that so that I could boot from here to go and do the clean wipe and reinstall. So it was like, yeah. But I hadn't had a flash drive since. Anyway, it was like, oh, I have to get a USB flash drive. I was like, oh, I'm sure I have one. So I found one of my USB flash drives. So I was like, oh, I have one. I can use this. And this was like a really good USB flash drive. It had like a lot of memory on it. And I was like, oh, this should be fine. I think I need a flash drive that has like a minimum of 16 gigs. And I plugged it in. And it had 512 gigabytes on it. Megabytes. It was like a 528 megabyte flash drive. Because it was old, but it was really impressive at the time, and I was like, oh, embarrassing. By Night has been the go-to for vampire games since the 90s. I guess I'll stream VTM games for the next while, gonna be By Night. It's interesting because if I did a vampire game, which I'm going to do, not now, it's not gonna be called By Night. Because I do not in any way want to get lore lawyers involved. I do not want people to think, I'm not participating in canon. I've got a vampire game that I want to run. I don't know when I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it sometime, but not anytime soon. But it will not be a By Night game. I think I'm going to call it, I have a title, but I'm not going to tell you. It will not involve By Night because I don't want people being like, well, but this, and like, none of that. None of that. I don't want any of that. I don't want to deal with any of that business. And so I'm definitely not going to signal that it might be involved in that business. I don't want people thinking, well, the gangrel left the Camarilla and da-da-da-da-da. And this and there's like, no, stop that. None of that. None of it. No. Nope. None of it. Not doing it. So yeah, basically none of it. It wasn't the graphics that made me not finish it. I got stuck on something and didn't feel like redoing things. Oh, interesting. I have also played System Shock and System Shock 2 relatively recently. Me having played System Shock 2 was why I was on Seamus's podcast. Oh, Krellin, could you say more about those experiences? Praxis, that was the one thing I was most proud of about the vampire game I ran most recently. It was not New York by Night. It was called Nightfall. Yay for originality. Absolutely. Not by day, maybe. What business? I came in the middle of the conversation. vampire. Going to call mine by night by night. Oh, that's a good one. No, it should just be night by night. But the problem with calling it night by night, Beetle wins, is that if you call it night by night, a couple of things come to mind. One, some kind of buddy detective show, night by night, where like one doesn't play by the rules, but one does play by the rules, but they're married. It's like Heart to Heart. You remember that detective show from the 80s? Night by night is going to be two detectives married to each other. One doesn't play by the rules. One does play by the rules. Shenanigans. And so that would be one night by night. I think the other one might be night by night would be like yeah, they could be vampires though. They could be vampire detectives. It could work. Phoenix by Day could be like a hunter's game. Troopers Vampires are all Victorians from Transylvania. Or just Night Bites. Oh, that'd be a good one. Night Bites. Honestly, that just puts the song Day by Days. Yeah. Or From Dusk to Dusk. Dusk to Dust. Yeah. Look, I'm just saying. Security office status. What do we have? Restricted. Administrator's notice. All password protection has been disabled by order of Lawrence Goodfellow. Privacy is a privilege and must be earned. Creepy. Let's list these access restrictions. Let's do that. And then let's also disable auto mechanical hostility protocol. Let's do that. Hacking. And then let's return to our root. And let's look at our auto mechanical status. And they look great. And let's look at our messages. To J-Lo, please explain. J-Lo is like Jennifer Lopez. New York by Day, game lasts all of 12 seconds. Beetle wins, I love it. Jared says, yeah, it stems from One World by Night, which was this big international vampire, the different cells. Yeah, it was like massive. It was a huge, massive thing. And it really had a very huge impact. It had a huge impact on a lot of stuff. Yes. Yes, it did. Yeah, it would be fun to see an RPG based on the kids' book, Der kleine Vampir. Well, you could do it. You know what I mean? Like, that. Had a thought. had many thoughts. I'm going to read this first, though. Dr. Lowe, I'm going to have to take the researcher side on this one. Your absence during an emergency is conspicuous. I don't want to report you because I don't want corporate auditors scheduling interviews with the entire staff while we're trying to meet deadlines. The unplanned sabotage event already halted experimentation and development. We're trying to get our operations running again, and we could use all the help we can get. I'm already down one staff member due to St. Germain's... I'm already down one staff member. St. Germain's gone. You know why. You owe this team an explanation to any number of grievances. Your absence is the most urgent one, but I'll take an explanation as to why there are primals being held in the caverns near our waste disposal site. They're your primals, aren't they? Response. Mr. Tanaka, no, I can't explain the primals. Primals defy explanation. They're a miracle of evolutionary adaptation and a treasure trove of interesting genetic material. I'm not going to explain my alleged absence either. This is because I'm not absent at all. My presence is implicit in the work of my researchers. The researchers still employed in this department are skilled and more than capable of repairing any damage done by the alleged saboteur. Please don't bother me again with trivial problems. You are the security chief. Stick to securing things, including but not limited to the safety of the lab and my privacy. Warm regards and pleasant felicitations off Jasper Lowe, who does not seem at all to be a fun person to work with or around. From S. Tanaka, resignation. Dr. Lowe, I've just finished filing my official report on the unplanned sabotage event. I want to know about the planned sabotage events. Unfortunately, filing a report on a sabotage event requires me to also include a list of captured, apprehended, and neutralized saboteurs. Company policy. No list means I'm getting arrested for dereliction of duty and you're getting penalized for hiring me. Saboteurs is plural. I can't include Mr. Saint-Germain's name and be done with it. As a last resort, I've been forced to include the names of all former employees whose contracts were recently terminated in the decimation. The researchers are no longer part of Project Gorgon and will likely not survive without a job, so I may as well use their names to save our jobs. I filed my report last night and haven't been able to sleep since. This is to let you know that I will be filing for transfer at the end of next cycle. Oof. Oof. Yeah. Oh. Ooh. Doesn't sound great. Sounds bad is how I would describe that. It doesn't sound good. It's okay. It's okay. Let's go to the move. Let's go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. No, let's go down that elevator shaft. Is it a shaft? Seamus was really into the Shock series, so when SS2 was on sale on Steam or Good Old Games, I bought it and played it. I've been a gamer since the 80s, so the graphics and lack of waypoints and stuff aren't a thing that stops me. The biggest downside to old games is the kludged together battle arena design that final levels always are, which modern games hasn't solved. You know, that's really interesting because I was thinking about that. So personally, I can play old games, but I find some older games are more difficult than other old games. And for me, that difficulty often comes down to control mechanisms, actually. That, like, I try to play games in order because I find they very often, not exclusively, but very often, fix problems with the control schema that when I go back to a slightly older version and have to play the control schema that is not particularly great, I get frustrated. So that is a thing that sometimes happens. But I don't... Also, I just think some games age less well than others, I think is the best way to put it. Let me just shoot this, shall I? Whew. I'm gonna shoot you. Stop moving. Also, that didn't do a lot of damage, which, you know, awkward. Everybody do the shooting, because there's a lot of... I'm gonna also just move to a slightly, this one. Oh, well, fine. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Nyoka. Okay. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine. It's great. They're doing a lot of damage to armor, these things. I feel like that's rude, and I also feel like I should just hack them. I've got hacking. I can hack them. And then just... Also, there are a lot of things here to shoot, but chat's saying important things, and I know it. And so I want to know what chat says more than anything. So we're going to just see what chat has to say. Ever play Aftermath? No, I haven't. I don't know if I have, actually. Tank control movement. Oh, yeah. I've also played old TSR Gold Box games this decade. How was that? How was that? How did that go? Yeah, it's interesting because I find that some games, you know what I think it is? I find that sometimes the middle games, like old arcade games, they're fine. Actually, I think they actually did very well with their control schemes for the most part. I mean, there were a couple that were irritating, like Track and Field was pretty irritating, actually. That was a pretty irritating game to play in the arcade. If you remember Track and Field, it was like the double buttons, and you had to, like, in order to run, you had to, like, that was irritating. That was irritating. But I find that arcade games often have pretty decent controls. But there's some video games that are, like, in that middle period where, like, it's kind of counterintuitive, and it's little, and it's like really small things. I mean, I can still play it. You know, it's not the end of the world or anything like that. But I notice that sometimes older games are a little bit easier to adapt to than mid games. And I should probably also stealth right now. I'm gonna hack this.
Oh, searching.
Here they come.
Oh, well, hey. Also, didn't I turn off the hostility protocol for this thing? Why are these things still after me? Why aren't they, like, being friendly? Because I really feel like we turned that off. Oh, there's a fight going on. So apparently it's fighting all the time. So, okay, well, great. Oh, shock weakness. No. We're going to reject that. We don't want that one. I mean, I will take the fact that I need to eat every once in a while because it helps me thin out my inventory, but I'm not taking weakness to shock. That's terrible. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Some of these like flaws are not worth it, in my opinion. Having to eat food, that I'm okay with. Yes. depends on the type of graphics for me. If back in the day they were trying to make realistic graphics, I have a much harder time than if they're already. That's very similar. There's some like realistic graphics that are like, oh, yikes. Sometimes I can get over it. It's fine. Yeah, there's just that weird. There was a little weird middle period. And Krellin says, oh yeah, like 2000 games are really hard to go back to. Yeah, Far Cry's when you start playing 1 and 2 are when they were still figuring things out. Yeah, 80s and 90s are fine. Yeah. Far Cry 2 is great, but very different from the rest of the entire. I played 1. Oh, hello, security. There was something. I was having an interesting conversation. That I typed out a bunch of thoughts on something, and I would love to know what some of your thoughts are on these thoughts. And it has to do with D&D in the new edition. And I don't have a lot of thoughts on my thoughts that I wanted to share are not actually on the new edition itself per se, but about new editions in general and thoughts about the band new edition. No. So somebody was talking about new edit, like, so we do need another welcome. That's true, actually. We do. That's just a true statement. That is a true statement. We do. I've got classes start real soon, so we just got to get through classes. Once classes start, then I think we're good to go. Because then I'll have actually sort of repaired my computer situation, and then I'll be good. Because we have things to talk about. I don't think I finished this area yet, so we have to finish the rest of this area before we move forward. So, backwards compatible. I last played Symphony of War recently, which is all cartoony sprite-based. It was amazing. Oh, nice. Far Cry 1 was a slog at this point. Far Cry 2 has some great things in it, but a lot of frustrating gameplay elements. So, there was this sort of discussion. Okay, so my understanding, it's a little unclear. Look, there are some things that I'm a little unclear on, to be very blunt, because things are being said, and I'm not quite certain how to take some of these things that are being said. So that is one thing, and maybe you all have some insight into that you can share with me. Is this drone, I've hacked it. Is it just hacked forever now, or do I have to shoot it? Do we know? I think I have to shoot it. Nope, that woke it up. Well, okay, great. I think we have learned some stuff. I don't know. What? Also, it's kind of dark in there. Okay, I'm trying to get an overview. All right, so it was about... there are a lot of things that are really tricky because I'm going to have to talk about GURPS. But also, a lot of these things people are talking about have been... if you have a broader overview of RPGs, some of these things are slightly different conversations. Anyway, so first off, let's have a couple corrections, shall we? And by corrections, I mean I want some of your input on this one because some of the things seem unclear to me. So my understanding from the things that are being said is that Wizards is framing it like this. Hey, D&D 1 is happening. It's not a new edition because we're never making a new edition again. That's very low.
Especially after I've gone to so much effort to see Gordon rest in peace. Why do you insist on waking it up?
At this point, I'm just in it to spite you.
You know, the more they tell us to stop, the more I want to see what they're keeping us from.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Hit this for a second. Question: are GURPS new editions easily backwards compatible? No, they are not marketing. It's not edition. Could you? Because I had heard that they were like saying that they were not going to do a new edition again. That's just like now a kind of a forever thing. I heard that. So give me some clarification on that one. And GURPS is backwards compatible. Yeah. Oh no, they're especially saying that it's not a new edition. It's just taking 5th and improving it, right? Because that I'd heard basically weird. I've heard conflicting things. I've heard one, they're not making new editions ever again. They're just sort of doing kind of like a long expansion thing. They're just like improving 5th. But then I've also heard that is a new edition. So like I've heard conflicting things, and then people have feelings about stuff, and so 5.5. But I think they don't want to look. I think they don't want to trigger edition wars. Is what I think. I think they don't want to trigger edition wars. So they're kind of doing this thing. So somebody was saying, I've got to, there's a direct quote. Yeah, so at least they're stating it's backwards compatible. There's a new rule set, but they're not calling it a new edition. They're just calling it an expansion of 5th edition. Everything will be compatible with 5th edition, so you can play all the adventures that are already out. So what's interesting to me, somebody was talking about how not having a new edition is a barrier to entry to new people, and that you need to have the new edition because otherwise you're just basically gatekeeping new people out. And I thought that was a really interesting position because that comes from basically, I think, not a competitive, like that's like true for competitive card games. But I think the history of editions and RPGs is different and complicated. I'm saying that I just don't think I think it's different and complicated. Remember when Microsoft said Windows 10 would be the last one and it would be iterative upgrades from now on, and then they released 11. It's like that. Yeah, Beetle ones. I think that's probably true. Me Down said, quote, "It's a code name for the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons." Yeah, but I think they're also saying it's not a new generation, right? Like not a new edition. I think they're doing weird stuff, but I also don't believe them. I also think it probably is a new edition, but they're just, for some reason they don't want to call it that. So I think that's tricky. But anyway, I was thinking about how RPG editions is such an interesting topic. I don't understand how it's gatekeeping not to release. The thing is, it would be gatekeeping not to release new editions in a different medium. So I'm thinking about, the best example I have is Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, the card game, which has been around since 1993, 4, 5, something like that. And that I watched, yeah, because the video I watched had a lot to do with Magic as well. Anyway, so they're going to do a new edition of the game to refresh it to be in the modern day. And I was like, that's so cool. And I was talking to the designers, like, yeah, we want to make it. Oh, for RPG. Oh, yeah, but here's the thing. We want to make it. We want to make it so that basically you can still use all of your cards for 1995. So that even though we're making this new edition, it's actually not a new edition because everything will still be viable. And if I'm brand new to this game and I'm going to be playing a competitive card game against somebody who's got some card from 1997 that I've never even heard of and doesn't give you the same time, that's like that's not great. So the question is, how do you do this with like RPGs? And actually, I think that, yeah, I mean, I get it for card games, but I think that sometimes people are thinking of these things as in that way. And I think it has to do with a shift, right? So I think there are these kind of interesting shifts, and some of it has to do with supplements, some of it has to do with additions. And I have 15 minutes, so I should probably go do this thing and also travel down here. So let's get this thing we got a thing we gotta get, and we're gonna get it because then when we do that, we have completed one of our missions, and then we can say that we have been very productive today, which once we do this, we will have been very productive. Could we have been more productive? No. Yes. Oh, good. Perfect. Oh, good. And then I can actually, we can raid you. Admin functions. Override synthesis lockdown. Status. Great. Admin functions. Return to root. Messages. We've got some messages. How long before computers get intuitive enough to run a real tabletop operator? Oh, I don't think so ever. I just don't. I don't think they ever can. I think they can run really great computer RPGs, but I don't think they can run, because the whole point. Well, let me rephrase that. I think that they can run certain styles of RPGs. I think that a computer would probably be able to run a pretty good dungeon crawl, and I think they probably already do. Right? I think that if you're interested in a kind of a hack and slash murder hobo dungeon crawl, absolutely, I think they are already doing it. I don't think they can do some of the other things. Yeah, Krellin says that will not happen until we have truly human level sapient AIs. Yeah. To be fair, Trooper, a lot of people won't touch GURPS because they see a barrier of entry based on the number of books and decision paralysis. But that was a problem even when it first started. Do you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't about a new edition, and a new edition won't solve that problem. I think that there are people who will never get into any game that has a lot of choices, and that includes Hero, GURPS, Rifts. There are even if that game was brand new, there are people who think that games that we would consider not as crunchy are still too much choice. So I don't think that's it. The Crown of Solosse is a pretty fun dungeon crawl, D&D 5e game. Oh, I should probably play it. I should play it. So the thing is, I need to read this, but so look, the relationship to editions and new editions has changed. It was a very different relationship, and different games have different editions and different models. And so what the edition does and how people are going to respond to it really depends on the game, right? So I think about, for example, Call of Cthulhu came out with new editions every 3 years or so. Like, they had a lot of new editions, but they were almost the same every time. It was mostly just like minor updates to timelines and whatever. And so people didn't necessarily feel the need to always upgrade to the new edition. I remember the game that Rissa was running, we were still playing 5th edition until just recently we moved to 7th. 6 came out, but we didn't necessarily feel the need to upgrade. And all those things are backwards compatible. And so Call of Cthulhu's relationship to editions was different, right? Because it didn't feel the same. And then I think about all those games wherein the 2nd edition comes out because the 1st edition was bad, and the 2nd edition comes out about a year later, and that's a different, like, that's like a correcting of a problem kind of edition change rather than a, like, I put out the game and I was like, oh wow, and then I just, like, Vampire, the 1st edition, 1 year later the 2nd edition came out. Like, basically nobody played the first, like, the 1st edition just went away real quick. Like, 1 year later was, and then the same thing with GURPS. 1st and 2nd edition came out in the same year, and then the 3rd edition came out, I think, like a year, 2 years later maybe, and that was like the edition for a really long time. I heard someone say there was really no editions until 7th, which was really the 2nd edition, as the rules are most of this. I feel like that's a pretty fair way of putting it, right? That actually that would be an actual 2nd edition, the 7th. Yeah. I like Call of Cthulhu's relation to edition better than AD&D to 3rd and Beyond. Like the Mage game we're in is playing 20th anniversary. Yeah, so I think that there was a model of doing edition changes because you messed up real badly and you had to go and fix it. And people, I think people didn't mind when you did a new edition because there were problems if you were a small company and you didn't have any books out anyway. Like, I think people didn't mind so much. But I think I remember, the 1st edition war games were rough and bad. Right, and so then the 2nd edition came out, and I don't think people were super mad about that quick turnaround because A, they were a very small company, and they were doing the new editions because they had to be fixed. Yet, I remember personally also being pretty irritated by 3.5 because it was only, like, the span of time between 1st and 2nd was about 11 years. Between 2nd and 3rd was about 11 years. And then it was 3 years between 3 and 3.5. And they had put out quite a few books already. And then they just put out all those books again. And I remember a lot of people being kind of resentful that they expected us to buy new books 3 years later. And some of us, of course, didn't buy the books right away. And so then all of a sudden you buy a book and a year later you're expected to buy all the new books again. I knew a lot of people were very irritated by that. Because that felt like, why did you make a new edition, right? So that felt like an edition that people, I know a lot of people were just not all that happy with. Beetlewind says, coming from 40K, edition changes is mostly for getting real mad on the internet that your favorite unit got nerfed and they put a single minority character. Yeah. So I feel like sometimes and also people were like, Wizards was big enough. They didn't, like, why wasn't 3.0 where it needed to be in the first place, right? So I feel like sometimes people don't like it if you do a new edition too quickly because you messed up, especially if you're thought of as being professional and big and you're putting out huge amounts of content all the while we know. Also, because, like, they knew they were putting out a new half edition, but they kept putting out 3 edition books, which they then just immediately transferred to 3.5 and sold again. So I know people were not happy with that. 3.5 nerfs Wizards in more. They nerf them every edition, it seems. Yeah, Wizards are pretty overpowered, I will say. Yeah, I mean, I was in a 3.5 game where we didn't. It was like a level 20 3.5 game, and there was really no point not being a wizard. Like, I mean, all the rest of us just had nothing to do. Big, massive combat. Wizard does time stop, does all the stuff. Untime stops. They do all this stuff, and we're like, well, why were we even here? Jer, with digitization, I feel editions can and will start trending to longer releases between editions to do how-es. But the thing what's really interesting, Jer, is that it used to be long stretches between editions. Right? That's the thing, is that and this is the thing that I think is really interesting, right? That I think that we're talking about it. Let me read this, then I'll talk about the shift. Because back in the day, there were long stretches between editions, or games just only had one edition. Like, there's not an assumption that you'll even have more than one edition. And if you did have editions, there was often very long stretches between them. And then we got into a space which I think is tied to a different shift in the game industry, where you start having much faster editions. You can think about some of the Shadowrun stuff, where it seems if the purpose of the edition is to generate publicity, right? Like, no one's thought about our game for a while, even though our current edition is totally fine. So let's just do a new edition to get PR and get, and that feels like a cash grab. And so I think that there is a tension between people wanting new stuff, which you can still do for your old edition. Like if it's a new edition because they actually do really new cool things, that's cool. But if it feels like they're just scrapping the old thing that people still want support for, just so they can get a PR boost by announcing they have a new edition, then people often get mad. You know what I mean? So there's I feel like there's a complicated relationship to new editions, is what I would say. In a group game, Max, that's bad. You don't want games designed to make other players invalid. Yeah. Well, even if one D&D is a new edition, it'd be 10 years. But yes, it is. And I feel like, Krellin, I feel like the gap in time between 5th and this new thing feels decent, except I think one of the things that becomes an issue is if the current edition is working, why make a new one? I think that becomes one of the questions. And why make a new edition if the current one is working? Instead, make new adventures or new supplements or whatever it is. And I think that becomes the tension, because there are people who really like the edition that they're in, and they don't know why we need, and it's not broken, it's working fine, they don't know why they need a new edition. So I think that becomes a bit of a tricky subject. And I think what's fascinating is, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, let me read this, because it's about splat books. From Ambrose, Updated Security Practices. Pursuant to last week's incident, new security practices are now in effect. All lab personnel must tidy their workstations at the end of their shift. Close and lock all drawers, safes, closets, vents, and lab doors before leaving for the day. All visitors must be accompanied. Furthermore, any laboratory tech accompanying a guest who has not received certification in either self-defense or hand-to-hand combat must also be accompanied by a member of the security team. All confidential information must remain as such. Do not discuss the nature of your work outside or inside the lab, except to warn peers of imminent danger, such as fire, chemical spill, or suspected corporate espionage. All laboratory techs are to isolate themselves until further notice. Any laboratory tech found fraternizing in groups of 2 or more, or found speaking with the same person more than once, will be reprimanded to Spacer's Choice Human Resources Re-Education Reallocation Department. Ugh. Finally, unless you're actually physically sitting in an interview session, pre-approved by me, do not speak to fucking journalists. Dr. Olivia Ambrose. AT concerns. Jasper, I dug into volunteer data Marion sent over. You were right. The current formulation is resulting in alarming outcomes, even by SC standards. Priyantha and I performed a handful of autopsies on this week's deceased and made a few notable observations. In one case, that of a young man in his early 20s, we noted a decrease in gray matter loss one would expect to see in a man of 70. His brain had also atrophied to a shocking extent, again as one might expect in a much older man. In another case, that of a woman in middle age, the subject was no longer able to achieve natural sleep. After 11 consecutive days of wakefulness, she was no longer able to distinguish her violent hallucinations from reality. Yet even as she spiraled, she demanded additional injections. I was sure our last tweak would reduce the incidence of violence among the volunteer population. We might attempt to further refine that compound through partitioning, though I'm doubtful that will be efficacious. Violence aside, I'm growing increasingly concerned by the habit-forming nature of the compound. What do you think? Ollie. Ambrose O. Monthly physicals high priority. The materials we work with are dangerous and will result in permanent injury, disfigurement, or madness when handled for extended periods. Therefore, all laboratory personnel will now report to the project physician, Dr. Priantha LeBlanc, for monthly physicals and psychiatric evaluations. I do this out of abundance of caution. Schedule your first appointment immediately and notify me when you do. I have access to your medical records, so I will know when you shirk. Do not make me drag you to his office myself. Well, we've got some problems here. Ooh.
I've seen negligence and greed and incompetence run rampant over this colony. But this was evil.
I'll see you, Max.
I've seen some reckless operations, but here, it's like they were trying to get people killed.
Something went very wrong.
Very wrong? Try unmitigated disaster, Captain.
Still, Spacer's Choice spent a fortune on this place. Filled it with the best and brightest lab coats they could find, and this is what they came up with?
They were pushed to do the impossible by people who weren't accountable.
Starting to think nobody's accountable in this void-forsaken system.
Knowing how Byzantines treat failure like it's catching, I can see why Minnie wanted to clear the family name.
Yes. I want to see what else this investigation digs up. Yes. Yes. So, here's the thing. We have... Oh, I think that's where we have to go. Let's, let me loot the stuff, and then grab that thing, and then...
Night falls on Gorgon. Though I suppose it's always dark here in the void. The lab is empty, and I am at last alone. I'm preoccupied with thoughts of the single-celled xenocytes that make their home here on this rock. These primordial creatures persist despite the hostility of their surroundings. No, they require adversity to thrive. Perhaps that's why our bodies react to theirs. There is a harmony in us. The law didn't craft us for the void, yet we scrabble across its cold worlds, building, persisting, as the xenocytes do. We live. Against all odds, we live. But for how long?
Okay. This feels like, please correct me if I'm wrong, this feels like a good moment. This feels like a good moment. It feels like we are almost done with this area. I think that we can... I mean, I'm going to stop playing right now, just so you know. I feel like we can... oh, this is just storage. We're going to just loot. All we have to do is check out that that bottom back area, and then... Oh. And then we're done. So, we're going to do that. Save the game. Saving the game. We're going to stand right here so we know that this is where we're starting next time. This is where we're starting next time. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to say as we're saving, because this is the thing I think is actually really important, right? So we saved. So now we go to main menu, and then I'm going to go here. And so this is the thing, and it's, for me, I think it's about a shift in publishing, right? No, stop looting. And it has to do with pressure to buy things. Before we get splat books. So, okay. GURPS does have a lot of books, but they're all optional. It has 2 core books. That's it. That's it. That's all you need. GURPS, like Rifts and a bunch of other games, are built on the 1 core rulebook that you need. Everything else is optional. But I was thinking about this early model. So back in the day, right, when I first started, you would get a game, and there was some kind of core books with it, and that's all you needed to play. And that is still all you need to play. I bought the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual's Guide, and DMG, and that was, I still, for first edition, I got a couple other books here and there, but really not much. I didn't really spend much money on anything at all. I did not have money, but also you didn't need it. I mean, at that moment, most of the people I knew homebrewed their own worlds. And sometimes those worlds had no detail in them, but they didn't, like, they would, maybe they'd buy a module, or maybe they wouldn't, right? So there wasn't necessarily the sense that you had to buy everything. And also, the books that were being made were being targeted specifically to game masters. So players didn't have to buy anything. Sure, D&D had a player's handbook, but Marvel Heroes, you didn't have to buy anything. Just the person who's going to run it had to buy something, and everybody else could just look at everybody's books. So there was really no direct, like, no real intense direct marketing towards players, so players didn't feel pressure to buy lots of game books. Like, things just weren't not marketed towards them. So you could be a fan of D&D and own nothing but the player's handbook. You could be a fan of a whole bunch of RPGs and just actually own nothing but dice. Yes, and see, Jared talks about the social pressure, but I actually think there's a shift that happens when really it starts with White Wolf, but then D&D jumps right in with the Splat books when White Wolf starts marketing directly to players. Right? So White Wolf starts marketing books directly to players rather than to GMs. And those books tend to have some power creeps, you've got stuff, and also include lore advances if you're in White Wolf. And I think that all of a sudden where the publisher is selling to the players more directly change the dynamic, because then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, player, you have to have this book. Like, if you're playing a Toreador, you've got to have the Toreador clan book. Oh, you've got to have the complete fighter. There's like a way in which there's this sort of marketing push towards these splat books, which I think changes the dynamic. I feel like you get less pissed off at an edition change as a player when you have only bought one book. Do you know what I mean? But if you've been marketed to specifically, and 3.5 did, specifically to buy a whole bunch of books, and then you do, and then they change the edition, and all that stuff is obsolete, and you're gonna be expected to buy them all again. I feel like that generates a lot more frustration than if, you actually didn't even buy any of those books. You know what I mean? And suddenly I had a mental picture of the game saying, "Oh, save me, protect me, save me," like Tamino at the start of Magic Flute. Yes. Wizard says, I mean, technically, but at least from Tasha's onwards, they revamped a lot of design tenets. And a shift like that happened in 4th Essentials as well. 3rd was even more extreme. So I kind of think, so for me, I think there's a mentality shift that happened, which is not exact about editions, but I think it's like tied into it, when games start marketing towards players. Because then there's pressure on players to buy stuff to be good players, right? I think there's an increasing pressure to buy things, right? So like, if a game has a lot of books, so what, right? Like, from my old mentality, if a game has a lot of books, so what? I don't care. If I don't need those books, I'm not going to buy them. All I need is that one core book, and that's it. And if I'm a player, I might not need anything at all. I just need to sit and like borrow the GM's guide, and I'm good. Maybe I'll need a miniature or dice, character sheet, whatever, right? And so I think that there's been a shift towards consumption as fandom, right? That like when I think a lot about how. By the way, this thing I'm doing with my nose is because I've got a mustache hair that's tickling my nostril, just so you know. It's like curled up and it's tickling my nostril. Like, I think about how you could be a D&D person and really never buy any module at all. Like, never buy anything at all besides the core. Or sometimes not buy anything at all. And I think the move towards splat books, a move towards a different way of selling things, involves a different way of relating to the product. Right? Which I think gives a social pressure to own everything, which then makes the desire for a reset with a new edition seem more attractive, because you're like, oh, I have to buy everything, but I can't buy everything. So if we have a new edition, there are just not that many books anymore, and I don't have to buy everything. But you've never had to buy everything, right? You still don't have to buy everything, which comes down to another thought, which is about editions as well. Krellin's like, capitalism ruins everything. Aximo is like, I'm familiar with the rogue mustache hair, and this rules attack my nostrils. Thank you. And the other thing is, the idea common in D&D that you create characters alone in advance makes it worse, as you need to own the stuff to use it, so sharing books is harder. Yes. So one of the things that I would add to this, which I think is an interesting part of this sort of the way that, like, before you would just buy more, like when I wanted to buy a lot of things back in the day, I would just buy different games. I bought Marble, I bought Chill, right? Because you didn't necessarily have to buy all sorts of things from, it's just like a different way of putting those things together, I think, which is interesting. But one of the other things that I think is, there have been discussions online, right, about how D&D does X, Y, and Z that are lore things. And I've always thought, and so therefore, you know, you shouldn't play D&D or whatever. And I was like, but D&D out of so many games has never really been a lore game to me, right? Like, because you buy those 3 books, and I suppose there's a pantheon in there, but also other pantheons, I didn't care. And I never felt beholden to whatever was happening in some, I mean, because look, if you remember from back in the day, TSR just put out 18,000 settings at one point in time. Dark Sun, Planescape, Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, there was like 18,000 settings, and you could either use them or not. You know what I mean? And so the idea that, well, D&D does this, and so therefore it's bad, we can talk about D&D's use of alignment. There's certain things that are like mechanical only. But if this setting does that, well, just don't do it. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I think that there was like a real kind of a homebrew sort of aesthetic in certain ways, or at least table autonomy was more recognized, right? I think that's what I'm going to call it. Table autonomy. There was a much stronger sense of table autonomy, I think, in the past, partly because we were not digitally connected to each other, and I basically played with the people in my group. You know what I mean? And if I went to a different group, I would see different things. But especially if you didn't go to conventions, like Gen Con was very far away from the West Coast, and so I didn't go to Gen Con. So there's a lot of table autonomy was part of a tradition, wherein I kind of don't care what the publisher's doing. We've got our game, we do our own thing. And so to see people feel, and I really do think that like White Wolf and some other kind of meta plot things help shift this as well. Like, I don't, like, it's my game. Like, our table are going to play the game the way that we want to play. And so it kind of doesn't matter what they did. I don't care what they did. You know what I mean? And so there's something interesting about the ways in which, actually, I think a number of things have shifted this. I think one, the rise of metaplot from certain publishers, the rise of splat books, the rise of adventure paths that take you from 1 to 20, as opposed to like modules you can kind of, things are modular, right? That you can like pull in and drag and drop from one place to the next, I think has shifted some of our relationship, our imagined relationship to the games, right? In some ways, I don't know if this is making sense, but like I'm used to a lot more table autonomy, and so some of these things are a little bit weird. Skyback says D&D settings are lightly baked in core books rather than fully baked in. Absolutely, yeah. Wizard Style says there's definitely a lot of additional material that is aimed at making the game more modular, marketed to players. Yep. In a lot of games, even PBTA games, but D&D in particular also tends to have a lot of design shifts outside of edition changes. Not buying books beyond the core ones means not keeping up with it. But it's interesting about that, right? House rules were also mentioned in rules. Yes, absolutely, Skyback, yeah. Which says, and not keeping up only really works when you have a stable group that chooses to do it. I think what's interesting about that is that it depends on what kind of books are being put out, right? So if you think about, when I'm thinking about like old school D&D, a lot of things that were brought out were modules or adventures. You didn't have to buy them to keep up because the game was the same, right? Like, whereas a splat book adds a lot more new rules, right? There are new rules, and if you want to stay current with being a Toreador, you got to have that book, right? Because that's now the thing. But a lot of those other things, like if I didn't buy Isle of Dread, or whichever it was, it didn't matter. Like, okay, so I didn't get, like, not buying Curse of Strahd, Ravenloft didn't do anything for me at all. Like, I wasn't not current because there wasn't a sense of trajectory, of like a meta plot, of a meta structure. Like, these things were just modular pieces. If I were playing Rifts and they had a book came out about, I don't know, dinosaurs, and I didn't want to use dinosaurs, I just didn't pick up the book. I wasn't not keeping up because I didn't need it. Do you know what I mean? And there's these things were not the various books were not essential. They were not a the game didn't move forward in time that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I didn't pick up Eberron or Planescape or Dark Sun, so what? Like, it wasn't like I wasn't missing anything, because the game, none of the people I knew conceived of the game that way. Whereas nowadays, people do conceive of the game that way, and it kind of does work that way in certain ways, right? But I was going to say something about PBTA. I do love. I mean, I might pick up the dinosaurs, to be honest. You weren't looking for new rules, new classes, new species, new spells to be released in adventures the way they are now. Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. And I will also say this. A lot of PBTA games, and actually a lot of indie games in general, just don't have follow-up support at all, right? They just don't. Not aimed at players, not aimed at anybody. Like, Night Witches has one book. There was one expansion that came out in the Gauntlet, but you have to own the Gauntlet to get that, and I don't, so I'm not going to have it. Oh well, life's moving on, right? I can still play it, and it's fine. I mean, there are just so many games that just don't have more than one book, right? And always have been. That's it. They have one, maybe they have two, or they have a couple and then they're done. Like, I think about something like Castle Falkenstein, which has supplements, but not that many, and then they were done, right? And the big thing is now, can you continue to keep it in print to bring people in, right? And now sometimes I will say the lack of modules and adventures makes it harder for GMs because they want to just plug and play. And I feel like one of the things that makes D&D very popular is it has a lot of plug and play adventures for people who don't know how to make their own adventures or don't have time. I think same thing with Call of Cthulhu. There are games that have got a lot of support for that GM who's doing a lot of work, and they do well. But a lot of games just don't have more than one book, and they are still doing well. More than one edition. Like, their games only have one edition, and they still are played, and people still play them and still like them. And so I think that there's a, you know what I mean? I think there's trickiness when it comes to how are we relating, and what are people telling us we need to do. The publisher wants you to buy everything, right? But do you actually have to? Are you missing out? Are you not a real fan? Are you not current? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Those are my thoughts. Yeah. Wizard Style says, oh yeah, even with adventures that add new things, they're easy to ignore. Some of the latest 5e books are essentially large-scale errata, not just adding new material, but redoing and enhancing what was already there, like all the additional class abilities and Tashas that served as a balanced passive. Witchcraft RPG only had technically 2 editions and only 2 supplements. That's it. Yeah. Also, I will note this. Now, and I'm going to go now soon. And I think this is interesting because some people have said, oh, the way to make GURPS popular is to come out with a new edition. We do 5th edition GURPS, and everyone will buy it, and everyone will be excited because there'll be new buzz, right? Krellin says, Wizards has put out a ton of stuff that I feel no need to buy. But you know what, Krellin? You're also old. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that you are also, you have also gamed in that other environment. But I know a lot of people who feel pressure to buy everything or else they're not good fans. And players even. And I was like, oof, right? Praxis. And the big thing now is if you're a GM who chooses to homebrew, and you have a player who's like, I'm going to pre-build my character, but they want to use all these rules and all these character options that aren't necessarily something that you have as GM access. Right, but also, there was a big difference. Like, and this is where splat books changed a lot, right? Going back to the 90s. Before, since things were not marketed to players didn't necessarily have the right to do whatever they wanted to do. Just because you made a character doesn't mean you get to port it in, right? If we're not using the book, we're not using the book. But now, since books are being marketed directly to players, they spent the money on it, they want to use it. And because the publishers have created that relationship with the players feel, the publisher said, of course, you should. This is official, you should be able to use it. But as a GM, maybe I don't want to use the Book of Vile Darkness in this campaign. And players, because they spent money on it, now feel like they should be able to. And that then puts the power of the table out of the GM's hand and into the publisher's hand in ways that then make this new dynamic we're in a little tricky, right? Yeah. Kron says, I mean, they've also put out stuff I do feel need to buy. Xanathar's, Tasha's, those 2 are must-buys. Yeah, but you could have not. I mean, I think, do I have both of them? I think I have Xanathar's, but I don't think I have Tasha's. I think that's the case. The only splat books I bought were the complete ones that expanded the classes and prestige classes, but beyond that I didn't buy anything else. And I think that what they're going for is trying to pressure people to feel like they need to, right? And that then changes the dynamic about what you think about editions and what they are. Yeah, oh, so GURPS 4th edition is 20 years old. Like, not yet, it's like 18. GURPS 4th edition came out in 2004. And sometimes people have said, oh, you know, the best way to make GURPS more popular is to come out with a new edition. Even if it's exactly the same. And, like, the people at GURPS are like, we don't need to put out a new edition just for hype. The current edition is working, it's doing its thing, we like it. If we came out with a new edition, it would be because there's something that we really believe we need to make a new edition. Not for hype purposes, or to resell all the things we already made, but because we're going to do something significantly different that we can't do with what we have right now. And I respect them for that. And I know that people were really angry at Shadowrun 6th edition. They were like, what is this crap? Like, this is not good. Why did you put out 6th edition right now? This is not doing what we want it to do. So I feel like there's a lot of really complicated relationships when it comes to what a new edition is, based on what relationship to that new edition, based on what kind of new edition is it? Is it a RADA edition? Is it a new rebalancing? And I think a lot of it is going to have to do with what is that relationship between the player base, not the GM base, but the player base and the publisher. Like, I know a lot of people who were really mad when the New World of Darkness came out because they spent so much time and money and investment in the lore, in the meta plot, in all those things, and then it all gets invalidated for that new edition. They got mad. I had stopped playing. I stopped playing when Revised came out. I mean, I played second edition, not Revised, and I just didn't move on to Revised because I didn't like what they were doing with it, in terms of how it impacted table autonomy. So because it impacted table autonomy in ways that none of us like, we just didn't go there. But I feel like there's a shift that happens with the way that capitalism has shifted marketing, which means that our relationship to product and authorship has changed. The author of my game is me and my players, not the publisher. And that's the tradition that I grew up in. They can put out what they want, and we will take what we want or we won't, but the game belongs to us. And if our game is problematic, it's because we were doing really problematic things. If we want to be less problematic, we'll do less problematic things. Like, we have this autonomy, but I think a lot of people now put the authorship at the publishers. Like, the publishers are the author of what happens at your table, and that is just not the tradition that I grew up in or really accept very much. Well, I was mad at 6th edition for being bad, not for being new. I feel like those things might be connected, right? Not that new things are bad. You can be new and be good, right? It sounds like people are playing an MMO when a new expansion comes out. Well, I actually do think that actually ties into it a bit, Artie Snack, that there's an idea that these expansions have to be done, right? And also support. What does it mean to support? What does it mean for a game to be alive or not alive? And I actually also feel like the OSR is interesting, because the OSR was basically people remaking the basic edition in various ways. Whereas Traveler, people just played the original 3. Like, you can still buy the 3 Traveler Black books, and people still do. There are people like, oh, I want to get into Traveler, the original 3 Black books, and then just go and buy them from Lauren Wiseman. And so that's interesting. That's interesting to me. I don't know. I don't have like fully formed thoughts on it because I don't yet have any kind of conclusions. I don't know if there are any conclusions to make. But I think it's interesting that some games pull you into one thing, and some games pull you into another thing. And you would think with the SRD and OGL, people would have more table autonomy, but I don't know. Beetlewind says, reminded me of how Steve Erickson and Ian C. Esselmont have created like a 30-book fantasy novel series out of their homebrewed TTRPG games in a universe. Yeah. Trooper, you need to get off camera. Yes. And maybe do stuff and then put some thoughts in Discord. Yes. Also, I need to do laundry because I have one more pair of underwear and eat food. And I have got some cola stuff to do. I've got stuff to do. Also, I've got to work on downloading software for this computer. So I'm going to go, but I've missed you all. And it's been really lovely to hang out with you. And we got to play the Outer Worlds. And we basically finished one of those plot pieces. We just have to clear up this space, do some looting, and then we've got one more ready to go. Then I hook up the big confrontation, and then Gorgon's done. Boom! That's it. And I've got to set my new mic, which I'm not using. You can't hear it because I have a new mic and interface, and I have to set it up, and I would like to do that today. So anyway, I'm going to go, but we're going to raid Max Rider because Max Rider is streaming right now, and I want to do that because I want to say hey. So let us... Oh, hey, everybody. Wandering DM is streaming right now. We raided Max Rider last time, but I want to go and raid Wandering DM right now because we have not raided them in a really long time. So I want to remind you of our raid command, and we're gonna raid Wandering DM. They're doing tabletop RPGs, and I just want to give them some love because, you know, Simon had COVID, and I want to, you know, just give a little bit of love. So we're gonna go and raid them, give them some love. You can find me Wednesday for Upon the Hexenshire Moors, and then Colos and all of that goodness. So we're gonna do that, and I will see you all. We'll catch you on the flip side once we get to raid. Okay, so I'll catch you on the flip side, and take care. And we're gonna go and raid and do all the do, and catch you later. Bye. Oh, you know, Twitter, Twitch, blah blah blah, Patreon, all the good stuff. You know where to find me. Let's go. Bye. Raid. Bye.